I think we all dreamt about going to space when we were kids. But when the space shuttle program ended in 2011, I discovered a void in my life. That emptiness led to a newfound obsession with space. A few years later, I wound up bidding on a Russian spacesuit as a joke. When the box arrived at my doorstep, my friends asked, "What are you gonna do with a spacesuit?" The answer? What can't I do with a spacesuit? That's how Everyday Astronaut was born. Since then, the suit hasn't left my side. It's even gone around the world with me. From remote villages in Myanmar, rockets, and spaceships. To beautiful fields in Norway. I'm fighting a cow to get a picture right now.
Here I am on vacation in the beautiful Norway with my beautiful boyfriend.
I even proposed to my wife in the suit at Machu Picchu in Peru. These days I work with leaders in the space industry to create fun and inspirational content. I've even been invited to different NASA facilities across the country, all for the sake of sharing my excitement with the world.
Hey there, it's me, Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut. Now, I'm not sure if you're aware, but NASA is doing some incredible... This is church for us space nerds.
This is where Gene Kranz was sitting when people first went up.
This is with permission. I still don't know how. I love that I'm standing on something that says urine bags.
This thing's gonna fly like a cat in heat. Whatever that means. That dog's gonna have a sore throat by the end of the day, I'll tell you that. Especially once he tries to explain to his friends that he just saw an astronaut flying majestically through the sky for an hour.
This thing has officially become the bane of my existence.
Everyday Astronaut's mission is to bring space down to Earth for everyday people, to communicate science through humor and imagination, but most importantly, to spark your curiosity, to want to find your place in the cosmos. Join my adventures as I seek to find out why exploring space is important, inspiring, and quite frankly, really, really neat. Show your support by visiting patreon.com/everydayastronaut. Hi everybody, it's me, Tim Dodd. I'm back from Florida. Yes, we are 1 week, now the 1 week anniversary of the Falcon Heavy launch. Oh my gosh, guys, that was absolutely incredible. Oh, for all those of you that tuned in, thank you. Sincerely, that was awesome. If you couldn't tell on the live stream, I was very, very, very overwhelmed in every sense of the word overwhelmed. It was just crazy. I had to set up 3 pad still cameras, which we'll go through some of those pictures here in a minute. I've got quite the show for you guys. We're going to show you some pictures, talk about behind the scenes and stuff like that. And then we're going to replay the launch, the SpaceX launch, because to be honest, I haven't actually watched it straight through. This will be a fun opportunity to go through. We can pause it and stuff and talk about certain things. We're going to answer all your questions about why a Tesla this, Tesla that, what happened to the center core. We're going to talk about all that stuff. So if you're looking for those answers, you are in the right place. I'm also working very, very hard on my next video, my next scripted video. So if you're new around here, make sure and subscribe, because that's what I do for the most part. I do a couple live streams like this, but I spend a lot of time and a lot of effort making really, really, really in-depth research videos. So this next video will have my reactions of some of those 5 4K cameras that I set up around me while trying to live stream, while trying to also somewhat soak it in. So yeah, it was incredible. I can't express that enough. And thank you. I owe a huge thank you to my Patreon supporters. You guys, I couldn't have done it without you. I got to meet we had like 20 or 25 patrons come out and meet up the night before the launch. It was really cool meeting you guys. That made me, oh my gosh, I can't tell you how much that meant. You guys, they bought me some awesome stuff. They got me some comfortable flight suits that I might try to customize to help match like my real flight suit. It was just awesome. It was so cool meeting you guys. yeah, I can't express how grateful I am for you guys. So thank you for that. We have a lot of stuff to go through here, guys. I'm really excited. I'm happy to be home, but it's like 27 degrees right now, and out down in Florida, it's like 85. I do miss my Floridian friends very much. So hopefully I'll get back down there soon. Yes, we have a lot of stuff to talk about. But first and foremost, I want to announce that today we will be finally announcing the winners from our 200 patron and 300 patron, the pieces of Space Shuttle Discovery that I will be giving away. That's a piece of titanium. I will be doing, this is my last one that I'll be giving away at 400. The other two are in my car ready to be shipped out because we have the winners, which we will announce at the end of the show. We did a random generator depending on how much people contribute. So if you contribute $1 a month, you kind of got your name in the hat once. If you contribute $5, you had your name contributed $5. So if you want a chance to win this last piece of Space Shuttle Discovery, boop, 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 and some other fun stuff in there, and I signed the back of it and stuff. Not the back of the medal. We don't want to ruin the medal with my name on it. But I did sign some other things in there. So if you want a chance to win that, visit patreon.com/everydayastronaut. Yeah, that would be awesome. So let's hop. We'll do that at the end of the show. But let's hop to it, guys. I've got some cool stuff here. Again, we'll talk about all the things about Falcon Heavy and the mission. But first, I think it'll be fun just to kind of show you guys some behind-the-scenes pictures here that I haven't quite released yet. So let's make it like this. All right, first and foremost, this was during pad setup. It started off as a super overcast day, the day before Falcon Heavy. And yeah, we were standing, this is probably half a mile out. Well, was our first remote opportunity. So you can see here, pretty okay shot. Meh. Get to the good stuff, Tim. Okay, I will. This one is on the opposite side. So this is on the south end of pad 39A, right kind of next to the HIF, the high integration facility, high bay integration facility, something like that, HIF. This helps give you a decent perspective on how, look at these little people down here, the little ants. They're just little baby guys, and that's the big rocket. You can't even see the whole thing. How'd they all get in there? How'd it get down there like that? Look at the little guys. Now they're gonna be out of focus because we're focused over here on the big old Falcon Heavy. That's it. Oh, it still hurts my brain to actually comprehend how big and amazing that thing is. Horizontal integration facility. Thank you very much. Oh, we need to hide my face. Okay, we'll do that for a second. I think you're right. During these pictures, why don't I go ahead and zip zap that away? Bye, guys. So there we go. La-di-dee. Look at those titanium grid fins. I'm going to write a song about that. Why not? All right. Let's go to the next one. This is a panorama, believe it or not. I know it doesn't really look like a panorama because normally you think of a panorama as like horizontal, but this is indeed like 7 or 8 images stitched together, 42 megapixel images. This ended up being 150 megapixels worth of Falcon Heavy glory. Look at this. Look at the detail. I don't know if you guys have seen that video of the guy that points to the horse and says it's a butterfly or vice versa. He's pointing to a butterfly and it's like, look at the hair on the snout. Look at that snout. I feel like doing that now. Look at the hair. Look at the mane on this thing. Isn't it just gorgeous? Let's see here. Yeah, so this is cool. You can actually see all like the scorch marks because, remember these side boosters are previously flown, which is awesome. You can kind of see they are still pretty dirty. They're also probably pretty dirty from the static fire. You can see, look at that. Some soot from static fire even, which is awesome. Yeah. Oh, here's my favorite part about this though, right? So you got this whole rocket. You got this big old dirty rocket, right? And you got lots of cool detail on it. But ready for this? Ready for your mind to be blown? Say yes, because I'm going to try to blow it right now. Landing legs. Still scrolling down, scrolling for eternity until we get, well, first off, you can see 33. That's the core number for the center core. Get ready for this. Look at these little people down here. They're just little guys hanging out in the trenches. Guys, get out of there. You're going to catch on fire and blow up if you don't move. You guys better run. I hope those hard hats are very strong. Isn't that crazy though? Look at how big. I just can't even. I can't. How am I supposed to comprehend how big this thing is? Look at that. There's just little faces and their little heads and their brains right next to this thing. Sorry, I'm like way too loud probably. Oh, isn't that crazy? Genuinely, doesn't that just sort of blow your mind? That really genuinely, oh gosh, yeah. Okay, next. That's enough of that one. Yeah, and to think BFR, as Patrick Carroll says, BFR will be so much bigger. Let's see. Am I still gonna be in the way of this thing? I'm gonna close my face out of here again for a second, so you guys can see these pictures better. All right, so this is the first picture that this pad camera captured. South again next to the horizontal integration facility, the HIF, and these pad cameras are triggered are by sound, so it takes a little bit. These pad cameras, this first one south here is like 2,000 feet away or 600 some meters away. It's quite a ways away actually, probably closer to a quarter mile, guys. It's quite a ways from the rocket, so it takes the sound a good number of seconds to actually get the camera fired up. So what happens is you have a sound activated trigger that sits on top of the camera, and then I'm gonna put my face back in here just so I feel like you can explain things with my hand. I talk with my hands. So you set up a camera. I for this, both of my pad cameras that went off and had decent shots were both Canon 50Ds, so they're an older body, but they have a decent frame rate. They can shoot like I think 5 or 6 frames per second, and at 15 megapixels, which by today's standards is a joke. But it's a lot better than the 40Ds that I also have that are only like 10 megapixels or 8. I don't even remember. I think they're 10, which is hilarious. But that being said, so you put them, you just turn them on and you let them fall asleep. So the camera will end up being asleep for like, a full day. And they can stay in sleep. Sleep mode is basically the same as being off. It just means they can be awakened by clicking the shutter or half clicking the shutter. And that's the trick here. The camera's actually asleep. And then it gets awakened by the sound trigger. And the sound trigger is that a thing that sits on top of the hot shoe. You set it to a threshold. So once it gets to a certain threshold of sound, it wakes up the camera and starts shooting away. So that's all this is. Yeah, so that's the first one of 2 with decent shots that I think were cool from this camera. So that's the other one from this camera. Yay. Yeah, I think that's pretty sweet. It was just crazy. Let's see, here's another one. This is the first one that came off of this one's inside the pad fence. So, this one was only, 800 feet. Wait, what was it? I posted it on Reddit. I think it was 1,400 feet, which is, some distance away. I don't remember. Yeah, there we go. Oh yeah, it's like, I don't know, 500 meters away or something. There you go, ish. Everything's an ish in my land. So this was the first one from that trigger. I like this next one better. These are available in my web store. If you happen to want a print, you can do that. everydayastronaut.com. Click there, go to shop, or everydayastronaut.com/shop. If you want, I have 2 sizes available. Thank you so much to the people that already have purchased prints. I think I've sold dozens, which is awesome because that really helps offset the price of gas and all the expenses to do all this stuff. And I rented some cool cameras for some cool angles. So thank you guys again for those. I might add this one. I don't have this one up in the web store, but I think this one actually would be really cool because you just see the flames. You know it's Falcon Heavy by the fact that there's 3 individual flames coming out of, all 3 cores. And you can see that the center core is even throttled down compared to the outer cores. Even at liftoff, they had it a little bit throttled down, which is crazy. And that's how they preserve extra fuel. So the center core can go further down range. Instead of it being cross-feed, like they initially had intended when they first announced it in 2011, it was supposed to have a fuel cross-feed system, which would basically be topping off. Technically, the center engines would be drawing from the outer cores. Instead of doing that, they decided just to throttle down the center engines. So that way it preserves some fuel in that center core so the center core can burn longer. But yeah, I think this one would be cool as a print. I believe we do ship internationally, so everything on my web store is automatically fulfilled. It's print on demand. So are the units at the web store in inches? Yes, they are in inches. That's a good question. 24 by 36, I think, is the largest I'm selling on there right now. It's all print-on-demand stuff. It's with this company called Printful, and they've done a great job so far. So, yeah, so I think this would be cool, though. 3 cores, 3 streaks. You see SpaceX there about to get just swallowed up by the amount of smoke. The plume from this thing was so much bigger than Falcon 9. Just crazy. My website's down. Great. I'm sorry, guys. I will try to get fixing on that later. My website goes down like all the time. I think I need a new server or something, or a new host or something. By the way, you can tell I was really excited about this launch, because when I put these cameras on the pad, I named it Spackwix Falcon Heavy. And also on the live stream, if you notice, I'm not changing it because I think it's hilarious. My live stream, that was in potato quality. Thank you guys for bearing with me, by the way. That was a nightmare for me. I like to have, high resolution, high frame rate, decent streams, and that was the opposite of both of those things. But here you go. So the thumbnail for the video of me live streaming says what's it say? Oh, Falcon Heavy. So I'll keep it at Falcon Heavy. I feel like that's better. Colin Anderson, good idea. I do have Cloudflare active on my website. I just turned that on last week or this weekend. So I don't know what exactly is going on. Just give it a few minutes and hopefully it'll pop back up. So we have a lot of stuff to talk about, don't we still? Huh? Never had a problem with GoDaddy as a host. So real quick, let me get one more rundown. Do you guys think I should be doing a print of this one? Let me know if you think so. I'll throw it up in the web store when we're done here, if the web store works. And I'll put that on Twitter too, so that you know this print's available on the web store. If you want to follow me on Twitter, you can search Everyday Astronaut on Twitter, but the actual handle's Day Astronaut, because Everyday Astronaut doesn't fit. So go ahead and do that if you want, and I'll let you know when it's up and when it's available, and hopefully when the website works. I apologize about that. So yes, we will be talking about where is Starman right now. So let's go to the next topic. The next hot topic. I had so many people ask, why did Tesla, or did SpaceX send a Tesla to space? Couldn't they have done something way better with their, why couldn't they launch like a person to the moon, or why didn't they launch like a satellite out to Pluto or something, right? Guys, we need to keep this all in perspective. This was a demo mission. This is the first time this vehicle, the Falcon Heavy, had ever flown, which means the risks are very high. Elon said it was 50-50. I think a lot of people were thinking more like 60-40. You don't put $1 billion satellite going to Pluto or a person's life on a rocket that only has a 60-40 chance of surviving. As a matter of fact, a lot of rocket, like the Atlas V has had the current iteration of Atlas V has had a perfect record of like 135 or 150 or something launches so far. I don't remember what the exact number is. 100% success rate. And that's obviously successful enough for people. But we don't, that's why ULA has secured so many of these expensive contracts, is because they have such a reliable vehicle. And that matters. When you're putting an expensive multi-billion-dollar, multi-year payload on something, you want to make sure that payload gets into space and gets to where it's supposed to go. So you do not put something expensive and of any real importance on your demo mission, which is why SpaceX, more or less Elon Musk, decided a better option rather than just throwing up a hunk of steel, which is they normally do like steel or concrete as a payload simulator, because again, you don't want to have the rocket empty. That doesn't simulate launch conditions. You need to put a payload inside the payload fairing to test out all the systems, to test out real launch conditions. So they normally just do a hunk of steel or some concrete. When's the last time you remember what a company put on a demonstration mission? The last one I remember is Electron had some really cool stuff. Electron put up that Humanity Star, which is a secret they didn't tell anyone about, but it's basically a disco ball in space that'll be in low Earth orbit for like the next 9 months, and we'll be able to see it sometimes transiting. I think that's awesome. That's a cool demo mission idea. Before that, the other one I remember, and this is not just because I'm a SpaceX fan. I'm a fan of all things space, but I think the only other one that I can recall is SpaceX has launched Wheels of Cheese on both their Falcon 1 and their Falcon 9 demo missions. Or they tried to, I think, with Falcon 1, but for sure Falcon 9 had a big old wheel of cheese. And that's the only payload I ever remember. So, yeah, to me, a Tesla captivated so many people's imagination. We saw an actual car that has been designed, built, and made for planet Earth, leaving planet Earth. And you see Earth in the background. It was just absolutely incredible. To me, that is the coolest thing. How many people are talking about this mission now compared to how many would have talked about it otherwise? I bet you anything that almost doubled the amount of people that actually took time to think instead of just going, oh, a rocket launched. Cool. Oh, big rocket. Neat. Tell me when people got on board. Instead, we have people going, and even if it is controversial, why did a billionaire send his car into space? Well, luckily we can help inform people and let them know why this was so important, why it had any significance instead of no significance. That's the difference. The options weren't something of actual, scientific importance. The options were hunk of steel or something that we can relate to as humans. And especially when you see Starman, that spacesuit, a mannequin in a spacesuit inside a normal Tesla Roadster that's driven around here on Earth. When you see those out in space, you can relate to it. And all of a sudden, it taps into that and you can actually finally... It's huge, guys. To me, that is so important. That will go down in the history books. To me, that was a significant... I think I tweeted when Elon posted a picture of Starman flying away, after they did the Trans-Martian injection, and we'll talk about that in a second. But after they did that burn, I mean, they had the incredible picture of Starman sitting there in the driver's seat with Earth in the background. And to me, that is our generation's Earthrise. Now, if you're not familiar with the picture of Earthrise, that is incredible. That was on Apollo 8, the first lunar orbit mission where astronauts went around the moon. And I think it was Alan Bean. I don't remember. Someone will probably let me know. Took a picture of Earthrise, and it's the Earth rising above the moon's horizon, as they're coming around, orbiting. All of a sudden, the Earth rose, and it was the first time humans watched the Earth rise from another body, which is just incredible. And to me, this is of that type of significance. It's not quite, because the Apollo missions are still unmatched, in my opinion. This was technical. The Falcon Heavy launch was a technical feat beyond, in some ways, what the Saturn V ever was. But having people walk on the moon is still by far the biggest thing that's ever happened to humanity. We're not there yet again. We're not ready to repeat that kind of history yet, but we're getting close. Our generation will have their Apollo era very soon, I promise. But this was not quite it, but this was the first time I think the general public really started paying attention for the first time in a long time, which is really, really, really cool. Bill Anders took the Earthrise. Thank you, Stephen Bates. I knew someone would have it. Does NASA or a photographer get the royalties for Earthrise? No. Any image or video produced by NASA or any of their senior photographers are all public domain. So as a matter of fact, you can resell that picture even if you wanted to have a web store. You can make posters out of Earthrise and sell it, believe it or not, because it's public domain. It's funded by taxpayers' money. So I think that's interesting. SpaceX also puts their images up. I think they do it for public domain, but I don't know if they do it if they allow for licensing, like non-licensed resale of images. But it is up in public domain for free use. So the music was piped in from Hawthorne or maybe Titusville, wherever the stream was being produced. Yeah, the music was not physically... I still am trying to get down to the bottom of that. If they really did play some music... in the speakers, which wouldn't have done anything in the vacuum of space, but even if they just literally had like an MP3 playing and it was vibrating the speakers, that would have been cool. But the music you heard during the live stream, which we'll talk about, was not actually coming from the car. That was just in mission control. So, so Tim McConnell says, "What do we think of the naysayers claiming the pictures were faked?" I'm learning, guys. I'm still trying to wrap my head around why people and how people even, the cognitive dissonance they must go through to think that everyone down there were actors. The amount of money that they would have had to shell out, plus build that rocket, plus do all this stuff, plus the live stream, plus the fuel, plus all the thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people who witnessed it live, uploaded their own pictures and videos onto YouTube and all that stuff. I don't know. I'm speechless at this point, and I'm going to stop trying because I don't think it's worth even talking about people that are naysayers. I don't know the point in faking it, and that to me, that's Occam's razor right there. At that point, anything else beyond that is mute because, yeah. So, are you guys ready? let's see. It's true. No amount of evidence, as Sarah LJP. No amount of evidence will convince the hoax people. That's true. They have accepted their own fate, I guess, in that sense, and critical thinking is out the window. So yeah, we don't need to get into that. So yes, we need to explain TTEB. We need to explain the coast up to geostationary transfer orbit through the Van Allen radiation belts, the extra dosage of Van Allen radiation belts. We need to talk about the trans-Mars injection. We need to talk about where it went into orbit. We need to talk about what happened to the center core. We have a lot to talk about. Should we do that now? Or should we try and... We have a lot of things we can do. We can do that now. Do you want to watch the replay now? Let's see. Let's just talk about the launch in order of things that happened. How about this? Let's replay the launch. How about that? And then we'll talk about everything kind of afterwards. Does that make sense? Okay. So I think we're going to do that now. Okay, so talk first and then replay. You guys are thinking I need to talk first. Boosters landed, core crash. That's all, folks. That is pretty much all, to be honest. Before we continue, I actually have to pee already, which is just livestream 101 rookie mistake. I'll be right back. I'll leave you guys, though, with a fun little video, and then I will be back as soon as humanly possible. So don't go anywhere. We'll get to all the answers, and we will also be replaying that video as soon, just here in a minute. So, one second.
3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff. One more trip to land.
I think we all dreamt about going to space when we were kids. But when the space shuttle program ended in 2011, I discovered a void in my life. That emptiness led to a newfound obsession with space. A few years later, I wound up bidding on a Russian spacesuit as a joke. When the box arrived at my doorstep, my friends asked, "What are you going to do with a spacesuit?" The answer? What can't I do with a spacesuit? That's how Everyday Astronaut was born. Since then, the suit hasn't left my side. It's even gone around the world with me. From remote villages in Myanmar,
Rockets and spaceships.
to beautiful fields in Norway.
Fighting a cow to get a picture right now.
Here I am on vacation in the beautiful Norway with my beautiful boyfriend.
I like your guys' thoughts. People are like, why don't you just pee in your spacesuit? Maybe next time. So let's answer some questions. All right. So how about we go in order of launch? First and foremost, let's talk about why the launch got delayed. And this is good practice for me because I'm scripting this right now. So there were things like upper level winds that we talked about that a lot of people weren't familiar with. We have a lot of things. So let's start with upper level winds. So the Falcon, let me pull this picture back up. The Falcon Heavy is one of and the Falcon 9 specifically is already the finest rocket by definition. And yes, I'm not talking about how good looking it is. I am referring to its length to width ratio. So, you know how skinny and small the Falcon 9 is? One thing to keep in perspective, if you've ever seen a picture of an Atlas V, I need to just have like a whole file on hand or something. But an Atlas V is about the same diameter as the Falcon 9. Yet the Falcon 9 is so much taller than the Atlas V. It's really close to the structural limits of von Braun, so the German scientist turned American scientist after World War II, the kind of the head engineer that got us into the space race, really, and who designed the Saturn V and all that stuff. His guide, he said a vehicle can be no longer than 10-to-1 ratio, so 10 times taller than it is wide. That's the maximum, not 11, not 12, not 13-to-1. And the Falcon 9 is only 3.7 meters wide, and it's 70 meters tall. So let's do that math here real quick, and we'll get the ratio here. So 70 divided by 3.7 is 18.9 to 1. So SpaceX has stretched that almost double, which is incredible. And that's due to, we have we have a lot more advanced materials these days, a lot better engineering capabilities than we did in the 60s. So that's one of the reasons why they can stretch that, and it's actually really efficient. It means that you have a small aerodynamic surface. The whole vehicle's in line with that. It's really efficient to be skinny like that. So 18 to 1-ish, 19 to 1-ish. But here's the deal. The thing that's not good for is upper level wind shear. So as you go through the layers of the atmosphere, there can be jet streams that are going in different directions. And normally that's not a big deal. Say you're going through it slowly, those wind directions hit you rather slow. But when you're going thousands of miles an hour or thousands of kilometers an hour on a vehicle that's already, extra fine, remember, it doesn't handle those extreme changes in wind direction very well. And it could literally just crack that baby in half. By the way, I forget that I have this now to hold with my hands. Hey there. Thank you, Matthias. Jeez, just quick checking in. You have an exam tomorrow. Awesome. Good luck. Thank you very much, Matthias. Matthias, sorry if I'm saying that terribly. Good luck on your exam tomorrow. And thank you for wanting to remind people to hit the like button. I appreciate that. But yes, Ollie Braun delivered me a miniature Falcon Heavy to go with my big Falcon Heavy, and I love it. Look at this little guy. Oh, it's so great. Anyway, the upper level wind shears. I'm not going to do this or else Ollie would actually murder me. But as it goes through the atmosphere, if the wind's directions were to change really quickly, it could literally snap the rocket in half, basically. The structural loads horizontally would not be able to handle that. So that's why they kept delaying, making sure that they were clear with the upper level wind shears to make sure the vehicle it was within its standards. So they have a set limit. They send weather balloons up like every 15 minutes to check the upper atmosphere wind speeds, and they don't go until they know the vehicle will be able to survive all those different wind shears. So there we go. So that's the first question. Why did it get delayed? Second question that comes up often. Let me know if there's anything else in order. By the way, Ollie's models are incredible. I met him. We hung out. It was great. It was so great to meet Ollie. We talked so much online. He helped me with animations in that Falcon Heavy video. We're working on an upcoming video. He also produced the big models back here, which I have a Falcon 1, a Falcon Heavy, and a Falcon 9. They're all scale, which is hilarious. You can't even see the Falcon 1. It's like teeny tiny back there. Here, let me do this for you. Look at that little thing. That's how big the Falcon 1 was. This is the Falcon Heavy, Falcon 9. So thank you, Ollie. I'm so excited to have that little baby one in my hands now. It's so nice. Okay, so let's go to the next one. So links are in the description below if you want a link to go to buzzspacemodels.com. There we go. That's my shop. By the way, Ollie makes all of these by hand. So when people say I hear people say that's too expensive. No, he is way undercharging for the craftsmanship and the work on this stuff. And he 3D prints it. Each one takes, some of the bigger ones take days to make. It's crazy. It's insane. He is undercharging, if anything. And believe me, these are crazy. So yes, you can buy the small model that I just showed. It's awesome. So let's go to the next question, which is, so fairing deploy. So first we had the side boosters separate, right? The two side boosters separated from the center core in about 2.5 minutes, which we'll show when we replay the live stream here in a minute. The center core was throttled down during ascent, so it had remaining propellant to be able to do about 30 more seconds, which means that's 30 seconds more of the center core pushing and accelerating. That was basically gives, that much more delta V, that much more speed to get into orbit that the center stage, or that the second stage then doesn't have to do in a sense. Because it's the same second stage. So say you have a big heavy payload, or say you're trying to get that little payload further away, you have to have the center core do extra work. And that's exactly kind of how the Falcon Heavy has more delta V, has more capability, not only in lift and weight, but also in actual delta V. So say you could send something that, like for instance, the Dragon capsule, there's a Dragon capsule up there. The Dragon capsule on a Falcon 9 can only get up to low Earth orbit. On Falcon Heavy, they can actually get that orbit all the way out around the moon and do a free return trajectory around the moon because it has enough delta V. So even though the upper stage is the same, the center core ends up getting it that much further along that it has that much more delta V, that much more propellant, that much more boost to be able to shoot it out towards the moon. So, JH, thank you. Did Elon have to get approval from someone to send a Mars, or can he to send a car, or can he send whatever? So since this wasn't going to Mars, since it wasn't going to interact with Mars, it wasn't going to land on any planets, there were no planetary protections necessary. So I don't think he had to get any approval to do that. It doesn't really matter what you send up there. The reason you normally have to worry about that stuff is you want that stuff to survive in space. So you have to make it space rated. But with this, it didn't really matter what happened to the car once he got up there, you know? Yeah, and I love how so many people were so concerned that the paint's gonna explode, the tires are gonna explode, the batteries, did someone take the batteries out? I heard like people screaming in comments all the time. And to me, I was like, I'm sure they thought of everything. But even better than that, they just said, who cares? We'll get it up there and then whatever. Who cares? It doesn't matter. And I love that. To me, that's the best reaction. So that says, okay, how loud was the Falcon Heavy from the ground? Like, how many decibels? Was it louder than the space shuttle? I don't think it was louder than the space shuttle. Why didn't it melt in space? Good question. Space, although hot, 240 degrees Fahrenheit or something like that, it's not crazy hot, and it's the vehicle is rotating, so it's not like it receives. It's kind of like on a rotisserie. That's not that crazy hot, believe it or not. There are probably parts that have melted and did melt. But, man, I don't know. I'm working on getting some of those answers, so. And, oh, there we go. There's nothing for heat to radiate to in space. Loopy, thank you. Very good point. There's a lot of energy, but nothing to conduct to. So there's no air to trap the heat, so it doesn't actually conduct that well, which also means it's hard to radiate off of. So once something does get warm in space, it's really hard to get heat off of something because there's no air to transfer that heat onto. Same with the opposite. You can have something be really hot and radiating onto it, but it's not able to conduct to the air, so it's not able to heat up very much. Yeah, Apollo didn't melt. There we go. There we go. They really did not modify the Roadster at all. They sent it up there virtually unmodified. They gutted some of it, some of the carpet and stuff a little bit, I heard, but the seats and everything, just the same. So radiation doesn't need air. Well, there's a difference between, in order to transfer heat between something, you have to have a conductor. So radiating heat off of, from the sun onto something, it works a lot better if there's like a conductor in between. So, yeah, I don't quite know how that stuff works. I'm not a scientist in that sense at all, but I'm sure we can find that answer. Obviously they had to do a lot of that stuff leading up to the Apollo missions and things like that. So we might have to do more with that in a minute, and maybe I'll have to find those answers for my Falcon Heavy video and get the exact reason why it doesn't matter. So there we go. And I know just the person to talk to, Vax Headroom, who is Emery Stagmer. He's a satellite designer, basically. He's a genius that works at Northrop Grumman. He is crazy. So let's see. Okay, so radiation doesn't need air. Convection does. Good call, Bass Webbs. That's why you guys are here. That's awesome. So the next question. So after the Falcon Heavy got into its parking orbit, so that's the normal orbit around the Earth, which is just kind of low Earth orbit, they did another burn to get it out to geostationary transfer orbit. So that's the normal burn that, when they send something out into geostationary transfer orbit. That's when, if you're standing on Earth and you look up and say you have like a satellite dish and you want to point it at one specific satellite, that satellite's orbital period is 24 hours. So it takes it 24 hours to rotate around the Earth, which is interesting, right? Because what else takes 24 hours to rotate? The Earth. So if you get something up into that exact altitude, which is like 22,000 miles, I don't remember, like 35,000 kilometers or so, I don't remember, in altitude, a satellite at that altitude will stay as a fixed point in the sky. And it's really commonplace for communication satellites and a lot of other satellites to be. So that's what the burn did, is it got it out to its elliptical orbit. So it got it out to its highest point being geostationary orbit. Its lowest point is still down here. The perigee is down here at Earth, or low Earth orbit. So it just made a big elliptical orbit out like this. But the tricky thing is here, once it got to its highest point, it did a full... It basically expended the rest of its energy. It burned off the rest of its upper stage. I'm going to go ahead and go full screen here. So the second stage then, they relit it after that 6-hour coast. It takes 6 hours to coast up to that highest point, up to 22,000 miles and 22,000 miles in altitude. And then normally if you're to do a direct to geostationary orbit, like what this could have been doing, they'd only have to inject a couple, do a short burn to circularize it. So it would stay up there in geostationary orbit for all time. And normally that part is kind of skipped with most rockets. So that means the satellite itself actually has to raise its own orbit and put itself into that orbit properly. So that's something that the Falcon Heavy is capable of doing, is doing direct to geostationary orbit missions like this. It means they can relight at that highest point to circularize it right away, instead of it taking weeks or months for the satellite to circularize itself. And that also means that the customer doesn't have to provide that propellant to do that. So they can have a smaller, or the propellant can last longer for station keeping without having to put itself up into that circularizing orbit. But what SpaceX did on this mission is they actually did a full injection. They just basically let the second stage run out. They pointed it prograde out towards sun orbit. So once it broke Earth's orbit, it was then orbiting the sun. And the longer it burned, the further and further and further away the highest point got from the sun. And they just let it go. And people were like, it missed Mars. It missed Mars. It was never meant to go to Mars. They advertised it as an eccentric orbit going out towards Mars. So the highest point would hopefully reach Mars's orbit. So Mars orbits further away from the Earth, or further away from the sun than the Earth does. It's 1.5 times further away. And this went beyond that by a lot. They were just kind of showing off at this point, because it wasn't going to be orbiting Mars. It wasn't going to be landing on Mars. It wasn't going to be doing any of that stuff. And at this point, they just basically gave it the beans and said, let's see how far we can take this baby. So they got it. The highest point went all the way out to the asteroid belt. So, question for viewer. There we go. Our titanium grid fin's a big deal. We'll talk about that. What about fairing recovery? Good topics. Thank you. Thank you, Trond, in our Discord channel. It was never meant to go to Mars. They never said it was going to Mars. Elon maybe just said, we're going to send it to Mars. And it was kind of a passing comment, but it was not meant to ever go into our orbit of Mars. Definitely not meant to ever touch down on Mars. It was meant to show off the fact that you could do an injection to Mars, basically. And all that is how much power, how much delta V means change in velocity. Basically, how much extra fuel and range does this baby have, and how far can we actually get it? So, yes, it went way beyond Mars, but that's really cool. But the reason it didn't try to do an actual Mars orbit or a Mars insertion burn or even circularize itself into Mars orbit, the main reason is the upper stage. They just used a standard upper stage. They didn't give it long-term batteries and solar panels, and they didn't, put some kind of mechanism to keep the tanks pressurized and from boiling off. And they didn't do anything in preparation for that. So the batteries on the upper stage are only going to last about 12 hours, 6 to 12 hours. I think 12 hours. So that means once the upper stage batteries died, bye-bye. It's gone. And the telemetry would die, the video feed would die, and that's what happened. It is now just floating out there, orbiting the sun, lowest point kind of around Earth's orbit, highest point way out there towards the asteroid belt. So it went a long ways out. So, they lost contact at 12 plus hours. Thank you, Lucas. Did the upper atmosphere burn in the atmosphere? Nope. So the upper stage stayed attached to the Tesla. The Tesla, when you see pictures of it, it is still attached to the upper stage. They had no release of the Tesla, believe it or not. It just stayed attached to the upper stage. You just don't really see it in those pictures. So that will definitely be, it didn't quite get to the asteroid belt. It only reached 1.7 AU, so 1.7 units further away from the sun than the Earth's orbit. Earth is 1 AU, astronomical unit, I believe, right? And the asteroid belt's about 2 or something, right? So, Colbert may have screwed up and said Mars orbit. It was not going to Mars orbit. You can get to Mars in 3 to 9 months, depending on 9 is the most efficient version. Where you're in perfect alignment. You can actually cut that time down to 3 months if you have a really, 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 really powerful rocket with a lot of delta V. you basically have to cut it off really short. It's not efficient at all, but you can get there as quickly as 3 months. Actually, you can get there quicker if you really quick. Yeah, you can get there very quickly, but you just need a crazy big rocket. But realistically, we could kind of do 3 months ish with a very big, powerful rocket. So, no, Anthony Clarkson's going, come on, Tim. Elon did say he wanted to go to Mars. SpaceX misfired the upper stage, and now it won't get there. No. They said well beforehand, many times in multiple tweets, that it's not going to Mars. It's going to an elliptical, heliocentric orbit around the sun. And they even published ahead of time. They published saying that they're going to basically go for it. So, and Elon mentioned that in the pre-press conference. So, yeah, it's not... we're not in the Mars orbit. Loopy, you're exactly right. We are, it was a demonstration mission. Going to Mars would have been cutting the performance short of the upper stage. So it's not like it misfired. Yeah. Don't listen to that. Not right. And that's not me saying that as some like fanboy. Don't call me out on that or anything. It's what anyone would be doing. Of course, if you are on a demonstration mission, why would you cut the engine short and not see how far you could actually push the thing? So, yeah, and it's not like it was going to intercept Mars anyway, so it had no point in ending that burn early. So it will crash into Earth and destroy humanity, says Joe W., most likely. Okay, so let's talk about the center core losing its fuel. This one is curious to me too, guys. This one still we don't have all the facts on. We'll just say that the only thing we know is Elon doubled down, I think yesterday on Twitter, actually saying it literally ran out of TTEB. And TTEB is the triethyl aluminum, triethyl borine. It's pyrophoric fluids that when they come in contact with each other and come in contact with oxygen, they ignite. And that's what they use basically as their igniter. So that's how you restart an engine. So in space, in order to restart an engine, they can't just throw the fuel and oxidizer together. You need to have a spark. And that spark on the Falcon 9 vehicle is TTEB. You see it as this green flash. It's really cool. You see it at ignition, they use TTEB. You can also see it pre-landing burns. They use TTEB. You can see this green flash and then the ignition of the engine. We see that very clearly even in the Falcon Heavy side core boosters landing. For whatever reason, it actually ran out of TTEB. And again, guys, this isn't some... If you're ever thinking there's a conspiracy, guys, we're talking about SpaceX, the company that showed you every crash landing of all their rockets. This isn't some like conspiracy, but they were trying to derp the trip. No. Something happened. I don't know what. It is curious. It is unusual, but let's not play any blame games. Let's not speculate beyond the facts that we know. The facts we know is they said it ran out of TTEB. For whatever reason, I don't know if they just simply didn't pack enough or if it was a matter of who knows, but the final landing gear, Sean, thanks for, I'm glad you are happy for me pronouncing TTEB properly. Thanks for the tip for pronouncing TTEB properly. So the landing sequence is normally a 3-engine boost back burn. And yes, I believe, I need to rewatch, we'll watch that today when we do the replay. There was probably a boost back burn even on the center stage, which the center stage on a typical Falcon 9, even on a geostationary transfer orbit mission, a GTO mission, lots of times they'll skip that boost back burn. They'll just let the vehicle fall on its ballistic trajectory. So after, I just love that. I just want to show this off all I can. So after the second stage, I can't rip the second stage off this thing. Again, Ollie would murder me. The second stage goes off, and then the vehicle is just prone to fall, right? 800 kilometers downrange or something like that. They have two options. If they have enough fuel remaining, they will turn it around and either land back at land, or for the Iridium missions on the West Coast and on CRS-8 on the East Coast, they did a mild boost back burn so it could fall almost more straight down. It removes a lot of the re-entry heating. So on this, they said in the tweet before launch, about T-minus 4 hours, they tweeted showing a boost back burn of the center core. So Space Lobster ate the TTEB. That's the answer. So they probably lit 3 engines if they did a boost back burn on the center core, and we'll look into that here in a minute. Then they do 3-engine re-entry burn, which is the burn they do before they hit the atmosphere. And that is so that the atmosphere doesn't rip the vehicle apart as it hits the thick part of the atmosphere, as it comes into the upper atmosphere. It's going thousands of kilometers an hour. And if you don't slow down before that, it will just tear it apart. Hey, Christopher, thank you for your tip. I appreciate that. And then typically they only need to do a single engine landing burn. Now we know that they're going for a 3 engine landing burn on the center core. And I'm not exactly sure why. I don't have that answer, but we do know the previous mission, the SES-16/GovSat-1, they practiced that full 3 engine landing burn, which cancels out the velocity a lot quicker. So you don't have as much gravity loss. Basically, the later you can ignite and the stronger you can throttle, the less time you're spending fighting gravity. Imagine if you're hovering, right? Say you're just hovering. Say this vehicle is full of fuel and you're just sitting here hovering. You're wasting fuel, right? You're wasting fuel to fight gravity. So say you're going down and say it takes you 10 seconds to go to the ground, and you're fighting gravity that whole time. Every second you're fighting gravity and burning fuel, you're wasting that amount of fuel fighting against gravity. So the later you can ignite the fuel, the later you can ignite the engines, at the very last second you could go, full throttle. It'd feel like you're hitting a brick wall, but that would be the most efficient thing to do. So a good compromise is a full 3 engine landing burn. And that sounds like what they were doing for this one. They were attempting to do a 3 engine landing burn. For whatever reason, 2 of the 3 engines didn't reignite. They didn't have enough T-Teb. That's all we know. And yes, people were saying a 131. I don't think this was meant to be a 131. And a 131 landing burn would be like SES-9. 2016, they landed their first 3 engine landing burn, which is where they do, they kind of ignite one and then they ignite 2 more. So they can do kind of in between a normal 1 engine landing burn and this new full 3 engine landing burn. So, and in that case, they turn off 2 of the engines right before touchdown, just so it's a little smoother, a little more predictable, a little more controllable. But it sounds like they were going for a full 3 engine landing burn the whole time. Oh, Johan, thank you. Thank you for that tip. And do I know how the fairing recovery went? Let's go on to that. So center core, we'll figure it out. I'll get down to the bottom as much as I can before I produce my recap video talking about all this stuff in a lot more concise and organized way than just freestyling it like this. Fairing recovery. So again, SpaceX is working on recovering those fairings. So that's something they've been working on since last year. I know for sure they were working on it last year, and we started seeing the recovery boat, which is basically a giant. Elon describes it as a catcher's mitt on the back of a boat. It's this big net span that's 100 feet or 33 meters or something squared, and it's giant net, and they can drive this fairly quick boat out to catch the fairings. The fairings, after they separate and reveal the payload, then they can re-enter the atmosphere. And the reason they can re-enter the atmosphere is they have a big surface area. They're relatively light. There's not a lot, with like an aerodynamic center core or a core of the rocket. That thing's really aerodynamic. There's a lot of mass there. It will go through the atmosphere like a freaking arrow, you know what I mean? But these fairings, think of them more as like a paper airplane. They're going to glide and they can re-enter without needing to do any kind of, re-entry burn or anything like that to slow themselves down. Just because there's that much surface area and they're that light, they can just fall back. And then once they get down into the lower atmosphere, they actually rip a parachute and they pull a parachute out, a big giant gliding parachute. But it sounds like they're having problems because the parachute obviously needs to work using aerodynamics. And, so it needs the wind and all the air to be able to steer itself on a parachute. But you're carrying this giant thing that's basically a giant air scoop, a giant, huge aerodynamic surface that ends up actually interfering with the parachute. So they're having a hard time controlling it sounds like. I'm sure they'll figure it out, but, and Headspace, thank you for your tip. Can I comment on fairing 2.0 version? The only thing I know is that it sounds like this was one of the last fairing 1.0s, and maybe we'll see fairing 2.0 on Block 5 or even sooner maybe. Hopefully we'll hear more about that and we'll find out why, what that is, how much better that is than fairing version 1.0. I realize almost every topic here we could make into its own video. So I'm really going to have to pick and choose. Oh, man. Wow, we have so many good questions. And thank you, Tron, for keeping notes here in our Discord channel. Man, I don't want to make like a 40-minute long Falcon Heavy recap video, but maybe I should. Maybe I should just go for it, answer everything in one definitive source, or maybe I should break it up in like 20 videos or something. Yeah, and Joe W, I will be doing a video all about the blocks, the different block iterations, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And also, thank you, Excitable Ape. Thank you so much for your tip. That means a lot. Thank you. And Royal Gaming. It floats unlike the Blue Origin meme. Oh, I still love Blue Origin, though. I can't wait to see them fly. Why? Okay, this is a good question. Why is fairing recovery worth it? I'm going to do a whole video on fairing recoveries, especially once you find out more about fairing version 2.0. I'm going to put that on my list right now. I have a long-running list of things that I make videos about. So I'm going to do that right now before I forget, because fairing recovery, great one. But we'll mention it right now. Why is it worth it? Because those fairings cost about $6 million to make. $6 million. And how can it be that expensive? These things are huge. You can fit a school bus inside these. They're massive. They're made out of carbon fiber. Can you imagine building a house out of carbon fiber? How expensive that'd be. And then not only that, it has avionics and a lot of onboard crazy expensive materials, and they're really expensive. That's the main thing. Fairing recovery. That's why they do it. That's why fairing recovery is worth it. If they can start reusing that, that's a no-brainer. William Kelly, can I explain the physics of the side booster's triple sonic boom? I can, William Kelly. I think the best option for that, Smarter Every Day did a really good video. It's called the what did it? Binaural audio or something. Sound of Falcon Heavy. I have no idea what that word is, and I have no idea how to pronounce it. Something sound of Falcon Heavy. Go find it. He did a really good job actually explaining, and Destin does a great job, period. But on this, he did a good job of explaining why you hear triple sonic booms per booster. Binaural. Everyone's... I've never seen the chat just go... Binaural audio. There you go. Thanks, guys. Oh, that's funny. So there we go. Oh, that's a great one, Tron, in our Discord. Thank you for this. This is a good idea. He goes, speaking of carbon fiber, he used to sail on a 70-foot carbon fiber sailboat worth $7.5 million. So expensive stuff. So that's great perspective. First off, you sailed on a $7.5 million carbon fiber sailboat. You're crazy. You are crazy. Wow. That's amazing. So that puts into perspective of how crazy expensive carbon fiber can be. So imagine a $7.5 million carbon fiber sailing boat. It's not too hard to imagine how a piece that's way bigger than that sailboat probably could be worth $6 million. So. All right. When is it flying again? That's a good one. We'll talk about that. Yeah, there's that Smarter Every Day. Reaction control thruster outgassing. Okay, yeah. So someone asked what the white puffs of stuff, the white things in the back of the Starman live stream. They're asking, is it satellites? And what it actually is, it's the reaction control thrusters. So according to Loopy, and I don't know exactly what you're looking at, but most likely that upper stage does have a few reaction control thrusters and an oxygen vent too as well that vents outgassing. So they do that to keep it oriented. I almost said orientated. I want to say orientated all the time, and I probably should only say orientated from now on. But to keep the upper stage oriented, there are a few little thrusters that just kind of keep it able to point. So every now and then you might see it doing a few little adjustments and see these little puffs. You might also see some ice break away, some liquid or some solid ice, oxygen chunks break off. There's a few things. And the particles that come out from that. Yep, there we go. Why are titanium grid fins so important? So I have a video about this. I'll probably briefly talk about it in our recap video. First off, they're crazy expensive again. It takes almost 6 months to manufacture a set of them. And they're the single biggest piece of forged titanium in the world. So each one of those things is huge. They're bigger than a person. Imagine like standing there, like arms spread, arms out like this. They're bigger than that. They're huge. They're really, really, imagine one piece of titanium that big. Really expensive. The big thing with these titanium ones is they are not only a little bit bigger, 20% bigger than the aluminum ones, they also have a serrated edge. So the little tiny grid fin portions, the part that's facing down as it's falling, have these like bear trap edges. And what that does is that breaks up sound waves, or breaks up the transonic waves as the vehicle transitions between supersonic, so going above the speed of sound, to going below the speed of sound in the atmosphere. If it helps remove it so that different portions are hitting that sonic boom at slightly different moments, so that the fins maintain control. They also are larger, which means they have more control. And on these side boosters, see this aerodynamic nose cap here. We know that these sides are more aerodynamic than the blunt edge of the center core. So the center core is a blunt, like cut it off. That actually has a lot of aerodynamic drag property. And because of that, a normal grid fin actually works pretty well. But when you have a slipstream, a very slippery surface that is smooth, the grid fins actually can't bite onto as much air through that for whatever reason. I don't know if it's going faster, lower pressure. It might actually be a low pressure system or something, but the grid fins, they were concerned, would have less control coming back down with the nose cone as compared to an inner stage. So the inner stage is what the center core has, and what a normal Falcon 9 has. It has this inner stage here. And compared to when it's falling, this is obviously the tail end of the rocket. The slippery version with the boosters it needs more control, aerodynamic control. So that's one of the reasons the grid fins are so awesome. So, okay, so let's see. F22 titanium bulkhead is bigger, you'd think, Neuropilot. That's a good question. Why do the boosters turn a third black? From a viewer, we had that question. Thanks, Tron, for reminding. The boosters turn different colors based on how. So, for instance, the soot will stick on certain parts, and the soot does not stick on other parts. So, where there's liquid oxygen, so the liquid oxygen tanks are a lot colder. They actually have ice, and that's kind of, you can tell, in this picture that I have over here. I'll pull this back up. You can tell here. Look how crazy cold. Let's go in like 2-to-1 here, so you guys can get a better sense for this. You can see how crazy cold this stuff is as it interacts with the air in the atmosphere. This stuff's really cold. There ends up being a little bit of ice even that develops on the outside of the oxygen tank. So there's liquid oxygen, and there's also the RP1, the liquid jet fuel, rocket fuel, inside the tanks. And the oxygen is so cold, it kind of creates this ice barrier. And as it re-enters, some of that breaks off, and it kind of constantly is keeping itself a little bit more clean. So that's why you'll see certain parts white and certain parts black. So there we go. Oh, yeah, also, good call. Sean, I think it was, said just a second ago, titanium grid fins can also handle a lot higher heat than aluminum. Aluminum is catching fire and actually starting to break apart on some of those really fast re-entries. So for the center core, eventually, they'll definitely have titanium grid fins so they can handle those faster and hotter re-entry speeds. There we go. Okay, so let's see. So so that's why black and white. I'll maybe do that's a good video topic in general. I think that could be a dedicated shorter one. I need to not have all crazy long ones. Why black and white booster? There we go. Good question. All right, what else do we have? I feel like we had like 2 more questions we need to answer. Where is Starman's definitely one of them. We'll do that next. Okay, yeah. Starman updates. Yep, let's do it. So, okay, here we go. Boom. If you want to know where Starman is, go to, what is this? Whereisroadster.com. Whereisroadster.com does a live update of where the Roadster is right now. Look how close it still is to Earth. But it's currently 1.3 million miles away from Earth, moving it away at a speed of 6,857 miles an hour, or 11,000 kilometers an hour. The car is yeah, a long ways away from Mars, moving towards the planet, but eventually you'll see that this will be its closest point, here where it intersect. Well, maybe not. I don't know. But the car exceeds its 36,000 mile warranty by 247 times. That's hilarious. Yeah, so you can go to this, guys. Whereisroadster.com. You guys can't see that, but whereisroadster.com. Whereisroadster.com. So that's how you can track where the Roadster is. Again, they didn't really prepare this for space. It's just hanging out there, and it'll be hanging out there forever. It might slowly fall apart. It might not. It might maintain excellent condition. So, Astera, non-attenuated bass. I think that the best sound I've heard was that Destin from Smarter Every Day with his binaural. Oh God, don't make me say that word again. By something audio. Binaural audio. That's what it sounds like in real life. It's not attenuated bass. That's it ripping through the freaking atmosphere with big pockets where there is literally like no sound followed by these rapid crackles. That's what it actually sounds like to the human ear. That video is definitely the closest I've heard to a real life replication. So, I missed a couple tips here. Thank you guys. Sorry. Ryan, first off, please explain why the payload was a great idea, both PR and excitement wise. Ryan, I talked about that for quite a while, actually, at the beginning of this, so you might have to rewind. But I will again mention that. Name one other demonstration payload that you remember. Remember this, for those of you now tuning in, the Falcon Heavy demonstration mission was just a test. It was to make sure the thing can work. And it only had about a 60% chance of working, which is what most people's guess kind of was. Elon said 50-50. Most people were guessing about 60-40-ish. You're not going to put something expensive and of any scientific value. You're not going to put $1 billion 15-year-old satellite that, has a team of 1,000 people working on it on a rocket with that low of odds of success. Normally you put a hunk of steel up, maybe a hunk of concrete. The only other payloads I remember for a demo mission, Electron recently put their Humanity Star into orbit on their recent test flight from about a month ago. That was awesome. Very, very cool. That'll only last about 9 months. It's basically a disco ball on low Earth orbit. And the other one is Falcon 9 demonstration mission. They put a wheel of cheese on there. Other than that, we don't relate as humans to a hunk of steel. Who cares about a hunk of steel? Payload adapter or payload mass. That is boring. I relate personally to a Tesla. I love Teslas. I've seen a Tesla Roadster on the roads hanging out. Why? How cool is that we actually got to see something we can relate to as humans driving around that's normally on Earth, seeing it in outer space. That's just absolutely incredible. So good question. Again, I did a rant at the beginning too, so on replay. Zero Flames, shout out to this community and for the insane amount of knowledge shared. Yes, Zero Flame, you're exactly right. The people here are amazing. I need to thank you guys. I pull stuff from you guys all the time. I'll how often I ask, well, wait, what is that? And then I'll have answers from you guys. So thank you. You guys have awesome knowledge drops. I learned a lot from you guys. So yes, big shout out to this community. Thank you very much. And Julian's Lab, Tesla Mars flyby on 9th of October 2020, just 24 light seconds away. Agree with this calculations based on SpaceX solution number 5. Do I think this was intended by SpaceX? I don't know enough to comment on that, but if we can actually see it with the naked eye or with a telescope, I will be tracking it. I promise. October 9th, 2020. I will put it in your calendars now and remind me. Let's go track that, baby. Let's see that thing fly by. That'll be awesome. Absolutely. Headspace. Did I know that Russian Roscosmos did not congratulate SpaceX on its historical achievement, but they called it a cheap stunt to save a failing Tesla company? So much envy. I did not realize that. That actually really surprises me. That really surprises me. First off, I don't think having 400,000 pre-orders of a car is a failing company. I don't remember any other time we've had billions of dollars in pre-order sales for anything and had that be considered a failing company. And besides that, no, that we put the kibosh on why the Tesla Roadster is awesome. And again, guys, you hear me saying this stuff and you might go, he's such a Elon Musk fanboy, Tesla fan, SpaceX fanboy. Yeah, I like this stuff. It's great. Other companies are great too, though. And as soon as they start doing things that captivate imagination, I will be cheering for them as well. I'm not a hardcore, some people will be like, I only like the Dallas Cowboys or Chicago Cubs or nothing or whatever. I'm space. Make it awesome. Make it exciting for us as normal people to get excited about. This stuff gets me excited. I can relate to this. I can watch a booster land and I can take that thought that you had in 3rd grade of, now why don't they just reuse rockets and make it happen? I mean, this is exciting stuff. Of course I'm excited about SpaceX. That doesn't mean I'm only excited about SpaceX. That doesn't mean SpaceX can do no wrong. But so far, SpaceX is killing it. And believe me when I say this, I think we're not far behind from seeing Blue Origin just start knocking it out of the park too. They're the next one that gets me very excited. So I can't wait to see stuff fly. So the site again is whereisroadster.com. There we go. So yeah, whereisroadster.com. Aerodynamic analysis of lattice grid fins and transonic flow. AD. Yep, I have that in my. I have that in my in that Falcon Heavy video. So yeah, the 2 boosters landing nearly simultaneously was insane. Opia, you're exactly right. Let's see. Let's see here. I'm just double checking my Discord channel that we're not missing anything. Yeah, we kind of talked about that. So. Okay, I think, the last thing we need to talk about is the booster coasting up through the Van Allen radiation belts. People will be like, oh, see, 6 hours in the Van Allen radiation belts, man. Apollo, astronauts couldn't have survived. Just so you know, the Van Allen radiation belts are at a certain inclination. Some spots thicker than others, other spots thinner, certain altitudes thicker than others, etc., etc. So they purposefully drove this thing right through the middle of the radiation to get an extra dose of radiation to make sure their avionics on the upper stage could survive a high radiation dosage, right? It was them really putting their upper stage to the test. And that was actually a requirement or a request by the Air Force to make sure that they could handle those high doses of radiation. So they purposefully sent it out through the thickest parts and the longest coast through the Van Allen radiation belts as humanly possible. The Apollo missions actually literally went on this inclination that mostly avoided the bulk of the Van Allen radiation belts, and astronauts only received the equivalent to like a regular X-rays worth of radiation. Amy Shira Title, Vintage Space, does a really good video about that if you want to learn more about Van Allen radiation belts and the Apollo missions. Van Allen radiation. I'm having a hard time saying that. Check out her video. It's really in-depth. Does a great job of explaining why it wasn't such a strong dose. And this is basically the exact opposite of that. They drove it, or they flew it smack through it. So, yeah, so it was a test also to handle GEO over GTO they currently did. Yeah, and we talked about that earlier too, yes. They also had to let it coast for 6 hours, make sure it didn't outgas or if the lines didn't freeze or run out of propellant, and that it could handle the high dosage on its way coasting up. So Julian's Lab, thank you. If a flyby date in October 2020 is right, see video proof subject to recalls. Let's organize a big party that day. I love it. Good idea. We'll check that out, Julian. Thank you very much. Binaural. There we go. Oh, Apollo was 10 chest x-rays, says Bob Stanley. There we go. The space industry used to be less political. I don't know if I agree with that. It's always been inherently political by the fact that we purposefully spread NASA throughout multiple districts. They inherently made it political so that they were ensured to be able to have congressional funding for upcoming missions. I don't think that's, I mean, it is political. It's also apolitical. It's one of the few things that is equally supported by Republicans and Democrats. But it is inherently, especially NASA, by being a federal, what am I looking for? A federal program. It is political, and actually we're finally seeing a little bit of distance from politics. Yet there's still, of course, going to be politics involved. So, all right. So, let's see. Let's go ahead and Hey, we got a new sponsor. Thank you, Andy C. Thank you very much. Everyone's back to me pronouncing binaural. Binarial. I'm seeing it all over. Binarial, sure. Okay, so let's do the replay. I think we're ready to watch it. I've been waiting very patiently to watch this with you guys. Like I said, I haven't actually watched the full thing front to back. We'll pause it if we need to. Yeah, I think we're ready for this. Yeah, let's do this, guys. Ready? Let me know volume-wise how we're doing. Let's do a good replay. Oh, I'm already excited. Oh, yes. So awesome. Howdy, South Dakota.
You are looking at a live view of the Falcon Heavy. Yes,
not live.
the Falcon Heavy on historic pad 39A at Kennedy Space Center, awaiting liftoff at 3:45 p.m. local time. Welcome to our live launch webcast. My name is Lauren Lyons. I'm an engineer in our flight reliability department here at SpaceX, and I am so excited to be here with you today, along with my co-hosts, bringing you coverage of the first ever test flight of Falcon Heavy. At liftoff, Falcon Heavy is going to be the world's most powerful operational rocket by a factor of 2. And today is the day that we attempt to demonstrate that power. And because it is a test flight, there is no satellite customer on board the vehicle today, but the fairing is not empty. We do have some very interesting payloads going up on this flight that we'll talk about later on in the webcast. We'll also walk you through the mission profile because this ain't your typical Falcon launch. We've got 28 engines, 3 boosters, 3 separate...
Let's take a second and talk about that real quick. I did forget to mention, I like that we can just pause it because it's not live anymore. This is really interesting. I've never done this. Hopefully this works out well. So Andre, or sorry for mispronouncing that, but Elon said Falcon Heavy will not be human rated. Can they use the Falcon 9 for the moon tourist mission, or will they have to wait for BFR? The Falcon 9 doesn't quite have enough Delta V, enough capability to actually send a crew capsule out around the moon and back. Well, around the moon, and then it would fall back anyway. So they will not be able to use a Falcon 9 for that mission. It sounds like that's totally been dropped. And it sounds like they're hoping to just put people on BFR, which is a little bit disappointing considering they just announced that less than a year ago. It was less than a year ago. It was on my birthday last year, February 27th, 2017, is when they announced people going around the moon. And that was actually the first video I ever made for YouTube where I'm standing there talking in my spacesuit. Was last February 27th. We're coming up on my 1-year anniversary of what I consider doing YouTube videos, which is hilarious. It feels like I've been doing this for like 5 years already. But yeah, so last year, February 27th, they announced they're going to be putting people on top of the Falcon Heavy. Now they're already saying they will not be doing that. They will not be human rating the Falcon Heavy. It's a little bit disappointing, but I think they're really just going full steam ahead. Think about how much bigger of a company they are compared to when they first announced Falcon Heavy. First announced Falcon 9, Falcon Heavy, and think about how much quicker they're developing things. I think they're really, really, really serious about BFR. And I think it's going to come at us like a sledgehammer. So, yeah, there we go. All right, so that's cool. I did not realize that you can see the ISS. So, yeah, 28 engines. I don't know why everyone's asking 27 plus 1. Yeah, it is. There are 28 engines total on this. So, yeah, there we go. And yes, 27th of February is my birthday. I just realized my birthday's... I have a day in February for every Merlin engine on the first stage of the Falcon Heavy. I'm a Falcon Heavy birthday kind of guy.
Events, 3 landing attempts, and there's going to be a lot of activity happening all at once. So this test flight is bound to be exciting one way or another. All right, we've got a ton to walk you through today, so let's get going.
Hi, I'm Michael Hammersley, a materials engineer in an avionics department. We're very excited. I'm sure you can hear it. To my right, we have a live view of Falcon Heavy on the pad at Kennedy Space Center. Falcon Heavy is essentially 3 Falcon 9 rockets all strapped together, which means it can carry much larger payloads not only to Earth orbit, but to the Moon and Mars as well.
I saw a really good question. I love pausing this. This is great. I like this already. I hope you guys are enjoying this and getting something out of this. Somebody said the Falcon Heavy showed having black legs. Sounds like the next Falcon Heavy, which hopefully they are saying June. I don't think June, guys. I'm thinking more like we'll be lucky to see another Falcon Heavy fly this year. But the next Falcon Heavy flight will be of Block 5 iteration. And Block 5 is meant for rapid and full reusability. So the next generation landing legs will probably be black, and they'll be retractable. And it'll have better heat shields and stuff on the in between all 9 engines on the first stage. So we should see the next Falcon Heavy is a Block 5 iteration, which just means it will be even more reusable. So there we go.
So like Falcon 9, Falcon Heavy is a 2-stage launch vehicle. The big difference is that the first stage in Falcon Heavy is comprised of 3 cores, while Falcon 9 has only 1. Now, each one of these 3 cores has 9 M1D engines, making for a total of 27 engines overall. Altogether, those engines produce 5 million pounds of thrust, which is equal to 18 747s at takeoff.
Again, guys, if you want to know, if you need to know a full-blown rundown on anything like during the lead up to the countdown of this portion of the launch, I have a complete guide to SpaceX that you need to watch. There's 2 parts. One talks about why there's smoke pouring off the rocket. If you haven't watched, go. I promise. I know probably a lot of YouTubers say this, but I make my videos in a way that they aren't meant to be as time sensitive as some other. Sometimes I do try to like break news. But every video I do, I make it so that it answers a lot of questions in one video. So even if you think you know the answer, like, can the BFR be used or something, I do a lot of in-depth analysis in those videos. So when you're bored, go through my videos. I promise that there's a lot of stuff in all of them, but don't look at my oldest ones. I noticed that one of my oldest, the second video I ever made, that one about parachutes, is like it's like my top video right now. Again, it's why did SpaceX land not using parachutes? And that video is awful. Don't watch that. Don't watch the old ones. Maybe like there's like 3 from the beginning, early days that are bad. And then once we started getting decent audio, and once I learned how to grade videos, it got a lot better. And once I learned how to read a script, it got a lot better. Once I learned how to script, it got a lot better. They got a lot better later on. So watch like the past 6 months worth, and I promise I answer a lot of your questions. So next time you're bored, just go through and watch them. I promise, like things like why is there condensation pouring off of the rocket is answered in those. So there we go. I realized that I was not scrolling anymore. There we go. Back to this.
In fact, the engines are producing so much power that we don't run them at full thrust all at once. So during ascent, Falcon Heavy will throttle its thrust up and down in both the side and the center cores in order to balance the aerodynamic and structural loads on the vehicle. So about halfway through the first stage's burn, the 2 side boosters will separate and come back to Earth for a simultaneous landing at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. More about that a bit later. Wait. At that point, the mission proceeds very much like a standard Falcon 9 flight. The center core will keep on firing for another minute to burn all of its fuel, and it will perform a standard stage separation from the second stage on top.
Wait, hang on. Were they making him... Was he yelling, wait, to the crowd so they wouldn't cheer over him talking? Is that what that was about?
Once. So during ascent, Falcon Heavy will
realized,
throttle its thrust up and down in both the side and the center cores in order to balance the aerodynamic and structural loads on the vehicle. So about halfway through the first stage's burn, the 2 side boosters will separate and come back to Earth for a simultaneous landing at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. More about that a bit later. Wait. At that point, the mission proceeds very much like a standard Falcon 9 flight. The center core will keep on firing for another minute to burn all of its fuel, and it will perform a standard stage separation from the second stage on top. This second stage, with the fairing right at the very top there, the second stage is exactly the same as any other Falcon 9 flight, except we've loaded a bit more helium onto it this time. Now, that second stage will be sending our payload way out into a Mars-crossing orbit, which we'll also get into a bit later. But all in all, with a successful launch, Falcon Heavy is going to be the largest and most powerful operational rocket in the world. We're very excited to be launching it today. Let's check in on exactly how it's doing.
Okay, so does anyone know, they mentioned they packed the second stage with a little more helium. I wonder if that's so it could do that longer coast. It would continually have to fill back pressure as a little bit of that oxygen vents out and a little bit of the RP1 vents out, mostly oxygen venting out. Does anyone know why they actually needed, to put more helium in it? Again, this is the first time I've actually sat and listened and digested this whole live stream. So if anyone knows why, I didn't hear that. Especially looking for you, Loopy, or Trond, or Mike, or anyone that might know the answer to this. Yeah. Helium is cryogenic. I'm guessing it was probably just mostly to... wait. Helium. To keep the pressure higher, the boiling point gets higher. That's what I was thinking. Just to make sure it could do that coast. There we go. So I'm guessing that's what it's for. Does the Falcon 9 use Ulid motors? That's not real, not Ulid motors. I think they just use nitrogen thrusters as it pulls away. That's how you keep the fuel settled, because obviously once you get into a zero gravity environment, when they stop accelerating, the fuel just kind of floats. And they need it to be in basically the bottom of the fuel tanks so the turbo pumps can suck up that fuel. So they actually do have to accelerate it a little bit before they ignite the engines. And so, yeah. All right, let's go ahead and continue playing here. We'll see if we find any other
Good afternoon. I'm John
snippets.
Innsbrucker, the Falcon Principal Integration Engineer at SpaceX. We're currently at T-minus 17 minutes, 40 seconds and counting down. The good news that all systems are go for launch. We're working no problems with the SpaceX test flight of the Falcon Heavy launch vehicle. Now we're currently loading propellant on all 3 first stage boosters, and we began loading a couple minutes ago on the second stage LOX tank. Now this is the same method that we use on the single core Falcon 9. It just scaled to handle 3 first stage boosters. Now we're loading liquid oxygen and kerosene. We do that because in order to support combustion, you need oxygen. And in the vacuum of outer space, there isn't any. So we bring our own liquid oxygen, chilled and densified. You may have heard densified in the past. That allows us to pack the maximum amount into the LOX tanks on the Falcon Heavy. Now our fuel is refined petroleum, RP1. That's essentially just a purified kerosene. It's a safe propellant, easily available, has a lot of history. For example, the Saturn V first stage, flown from the very pad you see on the monitor on the moon missions, used kerosene and liquid oxygen. Now the big news this afternoon has been the weather, and we've eaten up most of our launch window. Now we won't have the ability to hold the countdown any further now that we are into liquid oxygen loading. The good news is that the winds are looking good. We're working no issues on the Falcon Heavy. However, if there is an issue in the last minutes, we won't be able to launch today. There is a backup date available tomorrow. Now, I've said it before, launch is hard, and Falcon Heavy is no exception. We're essentially counting down 3 rockets simultaneously. So the SpaceX team is going to be conservative in case anything pops up in the last minutes. But as the energy and the enthusiasm from the team gathering below me outside of Mission Control Center X is growing, we are go at T-minus 15 minutes and 40 seconds and counting.
Okay, so we had a couple more questions that I kept track of here. So, number 1, why are we doing this? I was down there in person, so I haven't actually had time to watch this live stream fully all the way through. I drove down to Florida, set up 5 cameras at 3 miles away, set up 3 photo cameras with remote triggers at only about 1,000 to 2,000 feet away. I haven't had time to actually go through all this, and we have a lot of questions. A lot of things popped up in the press conference that people still have questions about. So we talked about that at the beginning. Now we're just watching it and pausing it whenever we have questions. So if you guys have specific questions about what's happening now, that's why we're doing this. If you don't want to watch it, don't watch it. But for me, I haven't actually digested all this stuff yet, so it's fun. I did have a good question that someone wanted to ask. What's the difference between the Raptor engine and the Merlin engine? They're very similar size, actually, believe it or not. But the Raptor engine produces 3 times more thrust than the Merlin engine. The Merlin engine already is the highest thrust-to-weight ratio of any RP-1 engine made, period. So a kerosene-burning rocket engine. It already has the highest thrust-to-weight ratio. So the Raptor engine, though, does not burn RP-1. It burns methane. It's a methylox engine, so that means liquid methane, liquid oxygen. And if the Falcon 9 were to have all those, like the Falcon 9 had 9 Raptor engines instead of Merlin engines, it would have 3 times the thrust. So a single Falcon 9 could be as powerful as a Falcon Heavy, but there's a caveat. The tanks need to be a lot bigger. So methane is not nearly as dense as RP-1, so the tanks have to be like twice as big. So it'd be a very, 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 very big, tall, ridiculous-looking vehicle. So let's see. And there is a lot of, it sounds like the Air Force has a lot of interest in the Raptor engine for whatever reason. I'm not entirely sure why. The upper stage of the Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy, the weak point is definitely the Merlin 1D vacuum engine. And it sounds like a potential for a vacuum Raptor engine would be huge. So that might be something they are looking into, but the problem is it would take a pretty big redesign. But thank you, Johan. I really appreciate that. Yeah, there we go. That's who designed the Merlin engine. There must be something they based it on. Yeah, it was I think Tom Mueller. He was, I think, one of the main people that designed the Merlin engine, and it's yeah, I need to remember. If you listen to or read the Elon Musk biography, they talk a lot about those early days and the early Merlin engine. So, all right, let's go ahead and keep going here.
My name is Brian, and I'm part of the software team here. And I'm standing just outside Mission Control as the crowd gathers behind me. We're all anxiously awaiting this very first test flight of Falcon Heavy. Now, today, SpaceX has over 6,000 employees in locations across the country, but it wasn't always like that. Now, when SpaceX was first founded in 2002, it was just a small group of engineers who believed that they could reduce the cost of exploring space, but had never actually built a rocket themselves. Now, Falcon 1 was the first rocket we developed, and it was pretty small relative to Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy. While the Falcon Heavy on the...
Good point, I forgot. You're right. The Merlin engine now is only rated for about twice the thrust of the Raptor engine is only rated for about twice the thrust as the Merlin engine now. I forgot the IAC, they did kind of have to set their expectations a little lower for the initial iteration of the Raptor engine will only be twice as powerful as the Merlin. But that's not a big deal. Remember, the Merlin engine now is almost twice as powerful as it was when it first launched. So it's safe to assume that SpaceX will be continually, pushing the limits of the Raptor engine as well. And I'm sure they'll get it up to that 3 times as powerful eventually. But initial flight configurations will probably only be about twice as powerful. Good point. Let's keep going.
Right of your screen is over 230 feet tall. Falcon 1 stood only about 70 feet tall and could only carry about a half a ton to orbit. However, despite its small size, Falcon 1 served a very large purpose. It was our roadmap to using modern technologies to engineer a vehicle that was not just more reliable, but was less expensive than alternatives. Now, we had 3 test flights of the Falcon 1 before we found success. But on that 4th Falcon 1 flight, it became the first privately developed liquid-fueled rocket to reach Earth orbit. Now, fast forward to today, and SpaceX has had 49 successful rocket launches. We have recovered 21 first stages, and we have reflown 6 of those. We have had 14 Dragon launches and have successfully reused the spacecraft as well.
Hey, wait.
Now, our next step...
Our friend... Hey, guys, I don't remember if you guys remember. Some of you may have been in here a few weeks ago, but it sounds like I don't remember, does anybody have his name in here? Our friend, we had someone wish him luck going to rehab to get clean, only 2 or 3 weeks ago. It was in the middle of a live stream, and all of us in chat here wish them luck. Sounds like they're 2.5 weeks clean, and they made it out. They're looking good, so congratulations. We're all cheering for you still. Best of luck, really. I'm so glad he came back around, and that's amazing. That's so awesome. So congrats on going to rehab, and best of luck going forward. So we're all cheering for you. Literally, you have all of you guys. Everyone say congrats, and welcome back, and keep that head up. Look towards the stars. We're all here with you. So, and Headspace may suggest creating a poster of Falcon Heavy during takeoff, completed with a great expression. Holy flying F, that thing took off. That's a Headspace. I will do that. I'll make an exclusive Falcon Heavy poster using one of my images. I love that idea. Very good idea. Sasha Gray. There we go. Sasha Gray. Let's see. Saw/Spitfire. Awesome. Thank you again. Welcome back. Welcome back, and let's all get excited about space together. Space can be your new drug.
On this journey is
It's
just
mine.
minutes from now when we'll attempt the first test flight of our heavy lift launch vehicle. Now, there have been many challenges along this long road, and it has not been easy. But no matter what happens today, it has all been worth it. Now, one of the many challenges we're hoping to overcome with this test flight is the recovery of all 3 cores of the Falcon Heavy first stage. Although we have demonstrated success with the recovery of a single core, 3 is on a whole nother level. So
Rokas, I've seen you ask this question twice, and I'll go ahead and answer it. The Tesla commercial was a contest that they did last year, Project Love Day. My commercial entry was just for fun. We got second place in it, behind Marquise Brownlee, MKBHD on YouTube. Huge YouTube star. We stood no chance. It was a popularity contest. And at the time, I think I only had like literally 2,000 or 3,000 subscribers on YouTube. So we were really, really, really excited to end up with as many votes as we did. So we ended up getting second. I have no affiliation, no ties to Tesla. If you work at Tesla and you want to somehow affiliate me and give me a Tesla, please do. But no, there's zero ties, zero sponsorships. The only sponsorships I get are from Patreon. That's from people like you that want to support and make the show better. So if you have noticed, look at some of my older streams from last year. The quality has gone up a ton because I take basically every single dollar I get from Patreon and I put it right back into the show to make it better. So our audio is improved, our video is improved. We're recording on 4K, even though YouTube only lets me do 1080. Actually, OBS only lets me do 1080. Yeah, we've really massively improved everything. So thank you. But no Tesla sponsorship. Let's keep going.
check in with Michael to get an overview of what that story may look like.
At SpaceX, our primary goal is to enable people to live on other planets, most notably Mars. But it's hard to do this without dramatically lowering the cost of access to space. And the best way to accomplish that is to reuse as much of the rocket as possible. So we've been successful at landing and reusing Falcon 9 rockets for over 2 years now. And Falcon Heavy aims to continue this trend of reusability. So today, we'll be attempting to recover all 3 of the first stage cores by using both of our landing methods, by land and by sea. So the side boosters have actually been used before on missions TICOM 8 and CRS 9. And at the time of booster separation, during ascent, the side cores will still be going slowly enough to turn around. So it makes sense to return them to Cape. They'll be executing a 3-burn maneuver to get them back to landing zones 1 and 2 and Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. You may have heard of landing zone 1. Landing zone 2 is an identical landing pad right next to it for Falcon Heavy landings. The center core will be going too fast to efficiently return it to Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. So we're going to use the autonomous spaceport drone ship to catch it about 300 miles off the Florida coast. It will also be executing 3 burns to get there.
So there, I hadn't actually heard confirmation for sure. 300 miles isn't very far downrange. It's not nearly as far downrange as when they do a GTO mission with a standard Falcon 9, which I believe can be 400 or 500 miles downrange. So yeah, they obviously did a boost back burn, which he's started to mention that they're doing 3 burns with the center core as well. Let's hear more about that.
So if all goes well after launch, we'll have 3 first stage cores back on Earth, 2 for the second time, and a wealth of data for perfecting airplane-like operation in the future.
Cool.
So countdown is still proceeding nominally. So let's check in again on how Falcon Heavy is doing.
We just passed T-minus 12 minutes in the countdown of the test flight of Falcon Heavy. Fuel is completely loaded on the second stage. The first stage is also loaded with fuel, except for a small top-off that'll happen between T-minus 7 minutes and T-minus 6 minutes. Our major activity now is loading liquid oxygen on the boosters and the second stage. Liquid oxygen propellant loading on the first stages will end between T-minus 4 minutes and T-minus 3 minutes. Liquid oxygen loading on the second stage is the last one to finish, ending by T-minus 2 minutes. Now, in addition to loading propellant, the team is preparing to perform their final checks of the Merlin engines. We'll begin chill-in of the Merlin engine turbopumps with liquid oxygen as typical at T-minus 7 minutes like we do on Falcon 9 flights. We'll also be verifying valves and using the thrust vector control actuators to move the engines to verify the actuators are working correctly. As we get to T-minus 4 minutes, the clamp on the top of the strung back will open. You can see it just behind the Falcon Heavy. That entire structure will move about 1.5 degrees away from the rocket. At liftoff, it will move the rest of the way to clear Falcon Heavy, just like Falcon 9 flights. At the T-minus 1 minute mark, the flight computers will go into startup mode. They'll be controlling the countdown on the Falcon Heavy. What's different in this flight, engine ignition will begin at T-minus 5 seconds on the 2 side boosters, followed 2 seconds later by the center core. Now we're continuing to watch the weather, making sure that the ground liftoff winds don't exceed the maximum, but they're looking good right now. We continue monitoring the upper altitude winds as reported by the balloons. But right now at T-minus 10 minutes and 10 seconds and counting, the Falcon Heavy test flight is go.
Awesome. So yeah, we didn't really learn too much in there. Pretty standard stuff. But again, I want to, somebody asks, yeah, if you can get, I do sell photographs. Someone was asking about, I ended up with 2 pretty good. We'll add a 3rd photograph to my web store, everydayastronaut.com/shop. They can get printed and they will get shipped right to you, drop shipping, nice and easy. But the big thing here, the big takeaway was, what was it? Somebody asked, oh yeah, I answered a lot of these questions at the beginning of this video. So watch the replay of this. If you're just now joining us and you're like, well, what about this? What about this? I spent like 30 minutes going over a lot of the whatabouts. The one thing I didn't specifically talk about is the drone ship. The drone ship is okay. It has debris on it because the center core crash landed about 300 feet away, about 100 meters away from the deck. It sounds like it may have wiped out 2 of the engines that came in that hot and spicy. There is a video of it. And that's all I have to say about that. And yeah, I hope that they release that video because it would be really interesting. It sure would be nice to see that video. And yeah, it crashed, but I think the drone ship will be relatively fine. And they are working on a 3rd drone ship, by the way. So there will be 2 drone ships on the East Coast. So, all right, there we go.
Because the first flight of Falcon Heavy is a test mission, we do not have a customer spacecraft on board today.
Somebody asks, what would they do if they had to scrub when they have the fuel on board? They can actually recycle the fuel. So they can basically pump it back through and recycle it and rechill it. And it doesn't totally go to waste. All the $200,000 worth of fuel doesn't just evaporate out. Some does, but yeah, there we go.
Instead, we put something a little special with SpaceX inside the fairing. Now, more often than not, on the first flight of a new rocket, engineers will choose to fly a mass simulator, which is basically a heavy object of some sort to simulate the dynamics of flying a payload, but with little consequence if the mission doesn't work out exactly as planned. And as many of you already know, we have opted to have a little fun with our mass simulator. Stacked inside the fairing is Elon's cherry red Tesla Roadster. And inside of it, a passenger. His name is Starman, but don't worry, he's not human. But he is donning the SpaceX-designed spacesuit that our human astronauts will be wearing on Crew Dragon. And if all goes well today, we hope to get some live views of it as it makes its way into space. Now, in addition to the Roadster, you might also catch a glimpse of a smaller passenger, which is a tiny little Hot Wheel Roadster carrying a tiny little Starman, which is a little Easter egg for today's mission, so keep your eyes peeled for that. But those are not the only payloads we're flying today. Secured inside the Roadster is another really special passenger called an ARC. An ARC is a 5D laser optical quartz storage device, which is essentially a high-tech, high-data storage unit that can survive in the harsh environment of space. It's built by the Arc Mission Foundation, which is an organization whose purpose is to store libraries of human knowledge and data on these devices and send them off into space with interplanetary travelers, thus preserving human achievements well beyond Earth. On the Arc that's being launched today, the Foundation has stored Isaac Asimov's classic sci-fi series, the Foundation Trilogy, which was the original inspiration for the Arc mission. And given that making humanity a multiplanetary species is the core purpose of SpaceX, launching an Arc on this mission just seemed fitting. And last but certainly not least, a little something special for our hardworking SpaceX team. Mounted on the payload attach fitting, which is the structure that holds the Roadster onto the second stage, there's a plaque on which the names of over 6,000 of our SpaceX employees are engraved.
I did not know that.
The work that goes into designing, building, testing, and launching a vehicle of this sort is no small feat.
That's
We are
awesome.
super excited to be a part of the Roadster's billion-year journey through the solar system.
As Lauren just mentioned, if all goes well today, Falcon Heavy will put the Roadster on board into an Earth-Mars orbit around the sun on a journey that could last for 1 billion years. Now, on a universal scale, this means that the Roadster will be tracing the shape of an ellipse with the sun at one of its fixed points, or one of its foci. And we call this helio.
Yeah, so Pedro, pause. She mentioned a small Roadster. I did not see it. She mentioned it, and so did Elon in the press conference. There is literally a Hot Wheels Roadster on the dashboard with a little tiny miniature Starman in the passenger seat as well. You can barely see it in the video of Starman. Just look for it up on the dashboard. It's barely there. So yeah, people are asking about BFS, the Big Falcon ship, which is the spaceship, the upper stage portion of the BFR, the Big Falcon rocket. Yes, it effectively could be an SSTO, which means a single stage to orbit vehicle, which means that it could take off on its own from Earth, get into orbit, and probably return. Maybe they never said return. They said single stage to orbit. That might be the big reason why they don't use it, because they want to reuse it. And it actually takes a decent amount of delta V to re-enter, perform its landing burn and all that stuff. So I'm guessing SSTO would not be fully reusable. It probably means it could physically get itself into orbit with no payload, or with very discernible payload. So it just makes more sense when the whole vehicle is reusable. Who cares how many stages there are? If you can reuse the whole thing, so if you can reuse the booster to get it up out of the atmosphere and give it, a couple thousand kilometers an hour of delta V, why not use that? The single stage orbit part doesn't really matter. I mean, that it sounds sexy and it's kind of cool, but it's not efficient. It's not the most efficient way to get something into space. Yeah, that's why. There we go. This diagram does have a BFR. That's hilarious. It's atomic. You're exactly right. Never noticed
Centric because it is sun-centered. The outermost distance on that same ellipse will intersect the path that Mars takes while it is on its own journey around the sun. That's quite far away. That will reach a maximum distance from Earth of over 400 million kilometers. In Earth terms, that's about the same as a trip around the equator 10,000 times. Well, during its journey, the Roadster will also reach a maximum velocity of nearly 40,000 kilometers per hour, or about 20 times faster than a speeding bullet. Now, as we said, it should stay up in orbit around the sun for about 1 billion years, and it's a very long, exciting road ahead, and we are thrilled to be able to take the first steps on that journey just 5 minutes from now.
Okay, I had a good question. OS runner, what do I think with the Grasshopper with BFR? So Grasshopper, SpaceX learned how to kind of maneuver, land, and take off rockets on these little short hops with this development. With Grasshopper. Then there's Dragonflight. Grasshopper, yeah. And so they basically made a Falcon 9 with just a single engine, and they would just kind of fly it around and land it back in McGregor, Texas. And it sounds like they're going to be doing something like similar to that with BFS, with the Big Falcon ship. They're going to be learning how to land it and do a Grasshopper-like test vehicle as early as next year, which I find very ambitious. So maybe by 2020, if we're lucky. It will be. They will be doing that. Elon mentioned they might go ship to ship. Drone ship to drone ship out in the middle of the ocean, so they don't, this will be a big vehicle. They won't be able to do that anywhere near McGregor, Texas. It'll have to be somewhere very far away. Or he talked about even doing it just from their new their new launch pad at Boca Chica in Texas. He talked about maybe just doing it out there, sending it up pretty far, turning it around, and accelerating back towards the launch pad really quickly, so it starts to simulate some of that re-entry heat and then landing. If they do that, that'd be freaking awesome. So let's see. Distill Zombie asks, did you ever think about being unhealthily obsessed with being an astronaut? No, because I don't actually want to be an astronaut. I have literally virtually zero intentions of ever going to space. I say this often in my live streams. I would gladly, I'll be a tourist someday after it's, get rid of the scary aspect of it. And it's not that I'm like a scaredy pants. I just have a lot to do here on Earth. And trust me, you're talking to a guy that used to drag race motorcycles, drag race cars, do daredevil-y things on several sport bikes. I don't have fear of the speed and stuff like that. I just don't want to die. I don't want 98.5% chance of survival. I want 99.99. I want it to be like a cruise ship. Get me on there when it's just no big deal. Then I'll gladly be a tourist. I don't want any responsibilities. I'll fly. So I wouldn't say I'm obsessed at all with being an astronaut. I am, however, obsessed with humanity getting towards space, getting out into space and exploring and getting beyond just our petty little tiny planet here. There's a lot more to explore. There's a lot of us that can come together and reach out towards the stars. That's what I'm obsessed with. I don't think I have an unhealthy obsession with an astronaut. So, yeah, with being an astronaut, because I don't want to be an astronaut. Yeah, I should be the everyday doesn't really want to be an astronaut, because I don't want to be an astronaut. It's more just we all can be everyday astronauts, really, in a sense. We can just be champions of science and exploration. We can be champions of humans working together and coming together for a common bond of space exploration. To me, that's kind of what everyday astronaut is. That's what it means to me. That's what it can mean to you. We're currently all everyday astronauts anyway. We're floating through space. We just happen to be surrounded by, Earth's gravity has enough pull on the atmosphere to keep an atmosphere on our planet. Otherwise, we'd just be, floating in the vacuum of space anyway. We're kind of all astronauts together right now anyway, so we might as well start acting like it, right, guys? Let's get back to this.
The SpaceX team continues to count down for launch.
Hey, wait, people are going, stop lying to yourself, stop lying. If you want to know, for real, there was actually, my parents went down to the launch. This was their first launch. And they happened to get interviewed by the local news, and they found out that they were the parents of Everyday Astronaut. And they're pegging them like, did your son always want to be an astronaut? They're like, no, he just fell in love with this stuff recently. He liked it as a kid, but he never wanted, my parents said it on camera that I never wanted to be an astronaut. So if you don't believe me, you can ask my parents. You can find that interview as Florida Space Coast News or something like that on Facebook. There you go.
Falcon Heavy test flight. Now, once we light the engines, Falcon Heavy will check the power on all 27 Merlin engines, a critical period in the go-no-go for launch. It'll then command release from the ground hold downs. 40 seconds into flight, we'll decrease power on the two side boosters in preparation for maximum aerodynamic loads on the vehicle. Once we get through this period, Falcon Heavy will throttle back up to full power on the side boosters. About half a minute later, we will again throttle down the two side boosters. This time we're decreasing the forces on the rocket structure. At this point in flight, the vehicle is much lighter, having burned off much of the propellant, but we are increasing thrust. 2.5 minutes into flight, we'll fully turn off the side boosters, an event called BECO, Booster Engine Cutoff. At this point, the pneumatic separation system on the center core will unlock the two side boosters and push them away. The side boosters will disconnect first at the top of the center core, then milliseconds later from the bottom, so they'll actually rotate away from the center core slightly. Once the side boosters are clear, the center core will throttle up to full power and burn for another 25 seconds. Finally, at just past 3 minutes after liftoff, the center core will shut down, an event called MECO, Main Engine Cutoff, and the second stage will separate. From this point on, it's like a Falcon 9 mission. The fairing will separate, the MVAC-D upper stage engine fires, eventually sending the stage and payload out into the solar system to orbit around the sun.
We had a good question. Why did they try a 3-engine landing burn with the center core? Is it a lot heavier than a normal Falcon 9? That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. They could have just as easily done a traditional, done a long coast, put the drone ship out further, not done the boost back burn at all, and save that fuel for a longer landing burn, in my opinion. I'm not sure why I'm sure it's not that the center core is that much heavier. Could it be? I don't know. I do not know. That is a great question. I'll see if I can figure out the answer to that and put that in my video. But I don't know why they had to do a 3-engine landing burn. And someone else asked, what do I do for a living? I actually do full-time science communication. This basically on YouTube. There's a few other exciting things coming in the future that you guys will learn about. But I've been doing public speaking and science communication, space flight specifically. I call myself a space evangelist. But yeah, I've been doing this full-time now for a year. Doesn't mean it's been a full-time income for a year, but it's I've treated it as a full-time job, quit my other job as a professional photographer to pursue science communication, spaceflight advocacy. And yeah, you're looking at it. This is what I do. So I spend a lot of time researching specific topics about spaceflight, and specifically about spaceflight. I'm not big into astronomy. I'm not big into astrophysics at all. But I love rockets, and I love the idea of getting us into space cheaper. So yeah, I treat it as a full-time job, and it's starting to get there. So there we go.
So that gives you a feel for the sequence of events we're planning on today's flight. So now, at T-minus 4 minutes, 45 seconds and counting, let's witness the test flight of Falcon Heavy.
Thanks. Tony Stevens, great question. Maximum aerodynamic pressure, is that a certain speed or a specific height? It's both. It's actually, so don't forget the vehicle is accelerating. It's going faster and faster and faster. And as it does that, you develop more and more pressure on the front leading edges of the vehicle. So that's just like if you're speeding up in a car and you stick your hand out the window, you can feel the faster you go, the stronger that pressure gets. But the vehicle's also going higher in altitude at first. So as it ascends, as it gets higher and higher through the atmosphere, the air gets thinner and thinner. So there's a point, and at that point is maximum aerodynamic pressure, and it's different on every single flight profile. So it's the point where the faster the vehicle is going and the thinnest atmosphere, at some point there will be the most amount of stress on the vehicle. And after that, even though the vehicle is still speeding up, the atmosphere is getting thinner and thinner and thinner, and it actually, the pressure decreases. So there's just a point in each flight profile where those 2 points intersect, where it's still speeding up a lot against the air, but the air is also getting thinner. And then beyond that point, the air gets so thin, it's less discernible and there's less pressure. So Scott Payne, thank you. Oh, and Osley, thank you. Small tip. Thanks for you're welcome, Osley. I can't wait for you guys to see my full recap video with all the good video that I shot and the in-depth rundown I will be doing. So thank you for that. Scott Payne, hey, could we all send you a video of our reactions to the launch? I could do a recap mashup to your fans. That would be awesome. Scott, yeah, I will tweet that when we're done here. Remind me. That'd be a great idea. A full-blown people reacting to Falcon Heavy would be awesome. If there's multiple, if I could find, I would need like a dozen to make it worthwhile. If I can only get like 2 or 3, yeah, send that to me and ask your friends. Get online, get on forums, guys. If you can find them, send those videos my way. If I can get enough, I will absolutely make a Falcon Heavy recap video of reactions. So thanks, Scott. That's a great idea. Let's get back to this.
When do you feel bleed has started?
SpaceX Weekly. Oh, this is a good question, and I should definitely say, SpaceX Weekly asked, do I have Instagram? That's actually where this all started 4 years ago, was on Instagram, believe it or not. It was an art project. So they have this video. I did a kind of like a TED Talk at this place in Sarasota, Florida, at this conference. And the video titled, How a Spacesuit Almost Killed Me 3 times. Watch that. You'll get the whole backstory of my Instagram and how that was my first viral thing with 20 million views on Reddit. Yeah, that was my big thing, actually, was making funny pictures on Instagram. So if you can find me on Instagram, that's where it actually all started. Everyday Astronaut on Instagram. Check it out. But yeah, it definitely morphed because it's hard to teach people in that little half a second of attention span you get on Instagram. So that's why I took to YouTube, was to actually be able to share my knowledge and get people excited in that way instead of just kind of entertaining. So, yep. And we'll answer the smoke. We have a good question. There we go. The smoke is not smoke, it's condensation. So what you're seeing there is you're seeing the extremely cold rocket. The rocket is filled with liquid oxygen and liquid kerosene, liquid RP1. But the liquid oxygen is like minus 250 degrees Fahrenheit, something around there. Let me know what it actually is. Paul Jr., 3 seconds at a time. This will be a long stream. Yes, it will be. But so the smoke pouring off is actually that liquid oxygen boiling off. So liquid oxygen, just like any matter, can be a solid, it can be a liquid, and it can be a gas. And so when they pour it into the rocket, they're actually cooling it so cold, even to the point where it's almost a solid. They're getting it that cold. But as it warms up from the ambient air in Florida, it ends up expanding and turning back into a gas. And as it expands, it gets 1,000 times bigger. So they vent it out in the atmosphere, but it's still crazy cold, like minus 250 degrees Fahrenheit. And as that interacts with the water molecules in the air, it condenses and you see these big clouds of condensation. So that's what you're seeing. Again, I talk about that in my complete guide to SpaceX series. So check out part 1 and 2. Check out that playlist on YouTube. I promise. If you tell all your friends and if you come to the next live stream having watched everything in that series so far, you'll have a good amount of this pre-launch stuff figured out, I think. So check those out. And plasma's the fourth state. Close out. Yes. You're right. We are going 3 seconds at a time. That's a good question. HZQ Productions, will the fixed service structure, this big tower right here, will that be redesigned for BFR? I'm wondering if BFR will ever fly out of 39A. I think Boca Chica will be, honestly, most likely where we'll see BFR fly from in the long term. I know that SpaceX, yes, I'm fully aware that they have been saying at both IACs that BFR will fly out of 39A. I'm just not sure if it will. I think it'll be easier for them to just use a brand new structure, a brand new clean slate structure for 39A. But this fixed service structure will still be used for the crew access arm to be able to put people on top of Falcon 9 using Dragon 2, the Dragon 2 capsule, hopefully by the end of the year, most likely early 2019 though.
NY lock slide complete. PY lock slide, throttling to close up. PY lock slide complete.
What is that talking in the background?
Stage 2 TVC motion's nominal.
I think there's someone talking way too close to the microphone going like, oh my goodness. I think they're on the phone because they're not talking like you'd be talking to someone. They're like, oh my goodness. And you just kind of hear them ramble a little bit. It's funny. I didn't notice that before.
BOGO bleed verification. Center core lock slide complete.
Strombeck lower has ended. Strombeck's at 88.2 degrees.
Hey, that's awesome, Sebastian. Thank you so much. After discovering your videos, you've really gotten into SpaceX and just space in general. Keep up the good work. Well, thank you. That really means a lot, and that type of support really, literally keeps me going. So, thank you very much for the tip. I really mean that sincerely. Thank you. When I was watching in real life, I was literally, the countdown clock was over my shoulder, but it was facing the wrong way for me. I was behind
Stage 2 lock slide complete.
Stage 2 locks, so they're done filling up liquid oxygen in the Stage 2.
Prop load is complete.
Prop load's complete too. So I was just listening to the countdown from the clock basically, but yeah.
Falcon Heavy is on internal power.
You can hear Carrie Ann in the background.
Ground gas closeouts has started.
Ollie, what's up?
Falcon Heavy gas loads are complete. In windy, fuel bleed complete.
I have not heard Carrie Ann yet in the background.
In windy, engine chills complete.
AFTS is ready for launch.
Ground gas closeouts complete.
Falcon Heavy is in startup.
It is alive.
Stage 2 present for flight.
Yeah, at this point, I was shaking. Literally, I had goosebumps. Even though it was like 80 degrees in Florida. Carrie Ann handles all
T-minus 30
caffeine.
seconds.
Literally anything, anything coffee related, and all the baristas and everything.
Countdown 1.
She's the manager of
SpaceX
that.
Falcon Heavy, go for launch.
That's awesome.
Falcon Heavy is configured for flight.
T-minus 15, stand by for terminal count. 10, 9, 8,
Side booster ignition.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition.
Still goosebumps.
Falcon Heavy.
Oh, yes. This shot is incredible. It was such a crystal clear day. That looks so fake. I love it. It was just too perfect. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I would have a hard time believing it.
If you can hear me over the cheering, Falcon Heavy heading to space on our test flight. Building on the history of Saturn V Apollo, returning pad 39A to interplanetary mission. We're getting ready to throttle down for max Q.
I'm not going to talk. I just want to watch this for a second, guys. We'll pause it afterwards. I just want to watch.
Vehicle is supersonic.
You've heard the call out. Vehicle is supersonic. Side boosters are now throttling back up to full
Vehicle has
power.
reached maximum dynamic pressure.
We're past max Q, the period of maximum loads on the vehicle. Next up, we'll be waiting for the side boosters to begin to throttle down prior to booster engine cutoff and separation 2.5 minutes into flight.
Oh, I don't know why I'm nervous. I know what happens.
GNC trajectory looks good on the Falcon Heavy. Reports show that the M1D engine performance is nominal.
Contact engine sales begun.
Side boosters have begun to throttle down in preparation for the upcoming shutdown in 20 seconds. Major event coming up with side booster shutdown and separation.
Inside shutdown.
Shaking.
Side boosters. Beacon. Center. We're throttling up.
Oh, yeah.
SRAM keeps going.
Okay, we do need to pause it here because there are a lot of questions leading up to this. Again, remember, in case you're watching right now, this is not live. This is almost exactly 1 week ago. I was there in person, 3 miles away. I will have a big, fat recap of my reactions. I'm like almost crying again because it's just amazing. So freaking cool. This is just incredible. Stay tuned for my reaction video and for my in-depth rundown on all the stuff. But one of the things I need to answer that's interesting is apparently they had a little bit of a problem in the control booth. And they accidentally had the live feed from the same side booster showing on these two bottom screens. They fixed that in the upload. So that's not a big deal. Actually, it would the fact that they fixed it shows that they're human, and if it was a perfect CGI pre-produced thing, it would have been perfect. So I think it's hilarious that people are like, see, they changed it. Well, they made a mistake. Literally, it's a live broadcast with a switcher panel that's huge with all these camera options, and they apparently just accidentally piped the same booster into the two screens. No big deal. So they fixed it later so you could see the two different views of the two different boosters on descent. Which is cool because I actually did notice when I watched the replay right away, I did notice that while it's still the live replay and not the proper upload, it did have the same boosters up there. So yeah, so freaking cool. So now we do have the proper feed from the two side boosters of them individually. So what were my thoughts on the second I realized the rocket wouldn't blow up? You can see, again, wait for my video. You can pretty clearly see my reaction in the video. I had 5 cameras kind of in and around, like, or not in me, Jesus, around me and things like that. So, yeah, so stay tuned for that. All right, let's do this again. Here we go.
Booster baseball started.
Successful separation. We're coming up on Nico in shutdown.
Stay set.
So they were quick. Booster separation.
Recognition. This big burn looks good on side boosters.
Those are really close together. But hold on, I do want to see. I want to see. Okay, so.
Major event coming up with side booster shutdown and separation.
Inside shutdown. Side boosters. Deco.
Okay, so apparently around 6,900 kilometers an hour at booster step. I want to know how much more velocity the center core put it on its own. So I'm just curious. I want to pause. This is for my own sake. You guys are just having to watch it. 6,900-ish kilometers an hour at booster separation. Let's see how much more delta V the center core puts in. So he's still accelerating.
That's where he keeps going.
Okay, another 1,000.
Still booster baseball started.
Successful separation. We're coming up.
I think we all dreamt about going to space when we were kids. But when the space shuttle program ended in 2011, I discovered a void in my life. That emptiness led to a newfound obsession with space. A few years later, I wound up bidding on a Russian spacesuit as a joke. When the box arrived at my doorstep, my friends asked, "What are you gonna do with a spacesuit?" The answer? What can't I do with a spacesuit? That's how Everyday Astronaut was born. Since then, the suit hasn't left my side. It's even gone around the world.
Wow. Wow, did you guys see that? That was awesome. That's the only thing I can really
that was
say right
absolutely
now.
wild. Absolutely wild. I got nothing else.
Oh, man. Recapping all the great things that you just saw there. Successful liftoff from the pad, successful stage separation, but before that, successful booster separation. You can see stage one. The two side boosters, pardon me, you can see the center core, and you can see MVAC lit up. Oh my gosh.
Then the beautiful shots of Starman chilling in the Tesla Roadster. Just absolutely incredible. On your screen at the moment, you've got a few things happening. On the upper right, you've got MVAC-D continuing its burn. On the upper left, you have the center core headed back towards the autonomous spaceport drone ship. And in the two bottom screens, you've got the side boosters headed back towards Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, landing zones 1 and 2.
That's so awesome.
The next step coming up for the side boosters and the center booster is the re-entry burn. That's going to slow it down from, or slow all the boosters down from way faster than the speed of sound to just faster than the speed of sound in order to reduce some of those aerodynamic forces and heating that occurs when you're moving that quickly through the atmosphere.
Wow.
And as you can see on your screen, that re-entry burn for those two side boosters has begun.
Oh, that's cool. You can see the other side booster in front of it. That's cool.
Side boosters entry burn shut down. Side core entry burn.
This must be the closer one.
The center core in the upper left of your screen performing its own re-entry burn. You can see the edge of Cape Canaveral in both of the side booster cameras as those are coming in.
Some PY and NY side boosters have saved.
Center core entry burn shutdown.
And even though those look very similar, those two boosters' views, those are actually representing different boosters. And they're heading towards Earth. They're about to begin their landing burns.
Ironically, at the time, they were the same. That's funny.
We'll be able to bring you nice footage of that.
Both side boosters transonic.
And watch for the landing lights deploy at the tail end of that landing burn.
There we go, T-Tab, you see out the green flash.
Burn has started.
Oh, it was a 3-engine landing burn.
Towards their respective landing zones.
Landing burns have started.
Now single.
Side boosters landing legs have deployed.
And the Falcons have landed.
LZ1, LZ2, both side boosters have touched down. Landing off and we're moving on to recovery 1 and recovery 2.
Stage 2, AFS has saved. And coming up very shortly, the center core will be attempting its landing on the autonomous spaceport drone ship.
You may also be hearing the second engine cut off. Oh, check on your screen. Sometimes this footage goes out when it approaches the drone ship and the heavy vibrations make it lose signal. We're crossing our fingers that's not the case right now.
Stage 2, nominal parking orbit insertion.
So it looks like the landing is happening at the moment. We have lost signal. We're hoping that signal comes back shortly.
Oh man, yeah. As Michael mentioned earlier, with the vibrations of the rocket and how it shakes up the cameras that are on the drone ship, sometimes we do lose signal, or shakes up the antennas.
Right there.
Oh, and we've just gotten confirmation.
Oh. We're waiting to hear what happens, and so we're listening in, and we're still waiting to hear. We'll let you know as soon as we find out. You'll know. People are cheering, but we'll get the call and know.
They knew they lost it.
Very, very soon how that center core is doing, whether it's standing up proud on that drone ship or not.
Meanwhile,
other two landings.
those were absolutely gorgeous. Meanwhile, the second stage is continuing its trajectory towards Mars. It's all looking good there. John, come give us a recap of the full mission.
He stands.
Well, if you could hear all that cheering, it was an outstanding test flight of the Falcon Heavy.
So people want me to pause here because they think that's the International Space Station flying by. I do not think so at all, because they would not. A, this was nowhere near the inclination of the International Space Station. B, they would not have permission to go anywhere near the International Space Station on a demo mission at all. No way. Definitely not the ISS. It's probably just debris from, stage shutdown. I mean, there's a small chance it's a satellite, but just very unlikely, guys. You have to remember how big space is. Remember, most satellites are smaller than, like a single-story house. They're very, very small, right? Think of them as like a shed. And if you were to plot sheds, even if, there's 40,000 satellites in orbit right now or something like that, think about 40,000 sheds plotted throughout the Earth. You could be standing on one and you won't even see the other one because it's too spread out. And now, even the further and further and further away you get from Earth, so currently this is at, 200, 300 miles in altitude, or 400, 600 kilometers in altitude-ish. You have to remember that you actually gain surface area. So especially when you get out to geostationary transfer orbit or geostationary orbit, if you have 20,000 satellites out there, they would be absolute specks in the sky if you can even see them at all. So, and it's not the fairing, because the fairing deployed a long, long time ago. This is now going 4 times faster or 3 times faster than fairing deploy. So it's not the fairing either. The fairing would be long, long, long gone. It definitely would not be. If it's debris. If it was a satellite, the U.S. Air Force would tell SpaceX of the conjunction risk. So it's definitely not. It's definitely not the International Space Station. But it'd be fun to think about. There's a good chance it's just a chunk of foam or something from the inside of the Tesla as it deaccelerates. Finally, it would unsettle and fall off. So.
Cameras cycling right now. Live views coming down from low Earth orbit. The second stage successfully got there, and it got there as the culmination of a great Falcon Heavy test flight. We lit 27 engines, throttled the boosters up and down. We separated the side boosters. They came back spectacular, simultaneous landing. The center core did its job. The second stage did it. Everything that you could want in a test flight, we got here. Now we're just looking for the icing on the cake to find out what happened on the drone show. But all in all, an outstanding test flight for Falcon Heavy.
Wow, what an absolutely momentous occasion. Thank you so much to the range.
Cool. We know what happens after that. Okay, so that's pretty much the recap. The fairings, I don't think they recovered the fairings. Elon in the press conference mentioned that they did not recover them yet, but they're working hard on it. They're also working hard again on. We know that they did not recover the center core; that it crashed at 300 mile an hour. Which is 480 kilometers an hour, 400, something like that. Very fast, very close, only 300 feet, 100 meters away from the drone ship. It did not make it, but they'll get it eventually. So you can definitely see it on their faces. So we do need to talk. I don't actually, guys. I just now realized that they did the 131 landing burn on the boosters. I did not realize they did that. I actually don't know why they did that. If they're just getting that confident with these landing burns that they can do that. It is more efficient to do these a 3-engine landing burn. The more you can accelerate, so they might light up the center engine, get it up to full throttle, and then light the 2 outer engines, get them up to full throttle, so you don't have the sudden shock of 3 of them igniting at the same time. That way you can gradually increase the G-forces and deaccelerate a little bit more gradually, but still then once they have all three lit, nail that throttle on those babies and really let that deaccelerate quickly. I'm sure they're pulling some serious G's there. It's pretty cool. I didn't realize they did that, and then they shut off the outer cores once they scrubbed off the right amount of velocity. And maybe that's why when you see, I'll be doing some footage here in my upcoming video. Remember, I'll be doing a massive recap video, a really in-depth massive recap video. In it, you can see the two side boosters. I got it from this a gentleman. What was his name? Barry Bonzak is letting me use his footage that he did tracking of the two side boosters, and you get a really good sense of his footage. It's excellent footage of how fast they're coming in before the landing burn. And then you see them light up, and you can tell they deaccelerate very quickly. So, I think when people I had never actually seen the 131 landing burn. I think they're referring to the actual final landing burn. They initially light the single engine, then they go for 3 engines, and then they go back down to 1 engine for the final little bit. So I did not realize that. Let's see. Yeah, and the guy, you can tell the guy that does the AFTS safing at the end says that's when they turn off the flight termination at the very end. You can tell he was relieved. He has a little emotion in his voice. It's pretty sweet. Is there footage recorded of the center core crash? Yes, there is, Turtle Ditch. Yes, there is, and I sure hope SpaceX releases it. It may or may not be awesome. I hope they release it. We'll just put it that way. I think that's going to be really it. Do you guys have any more questions? Is there anything that I need to put? Oh, we need to do our giveaway. We finally have the announcements of the 200 patron and 300 because we hit 200 and 300 within like 2 weeks of each other, guys. So, we have to do some giveaways here today, guys. That's awesome. I'm excited to announce these. It'd be really cool if the two winners, the 200 winner and the 300 winner were in this live stream right now. That'd be amazing. So let's do this. People are asking how I know. I know. Trust me. So, remember, I want to remind you guys about this. This was, we still have one more patron giveaway. This is a piece of flown Space Shuttle Discovery. So this little bit of titanium here was on Space Shuttle Discovery. And I made a copy of the certificate talking about that. And then I have one of my unique individualized cards, and I signed the back of it. We gave it away once we hit 200 patrons. Then we gave another one away at 300, and that's what we're announcing today. Those happened so close, I haven't even had time to announce them yet. So we'll do one more at 400. Then I got to find something awesome for 500. If these are our 2, 3, 4, actually 100, 200, I gave one away at 100. 100, 200, 300, 400 patron giveaway. I'm really excited. So we'll have to do that. If you want a chance to win the 400 one, make sure you go to patreon.com/everydayastronaut. And the way I weight it is for every contribution. So $1 contribution equals one name in the hat, your name in the hat once. 5 is 5 hats, 10, etc. Not hats, 5 chances, 10, etc. Whatever. So visit patreon.com/everydayastronaut if you want a chance to win the 4th one. But today, I'm excited to announce our 2 winners from the 200 and 300 giveaway. Are you guys ready for this? Are you guys ready? I think it's time. I have to find the email, though. My friend Carl gave me... We take the Excel spreadsheet, and he weights it so that it is weighted with everyone's contribution, and not total contributions. We did that for the first 100. We did total contributions, but now we're doing it so it's just period, your number of contributions. So you'd have just as good a chance now if you were to do 25 as someone that's been in it. But they had multiple chances to hit it because they've been doing this so long. So our official winners for the 100, so the first 300 patrons. No, we'll start at 200. So the winner of the first 200 patrons into the Patreon and a piece of Space Shuttle Discovery flown in space, signed over here and framed just like this, is Cami Glasgow. And Cami, I know I see Cami in our streams all the time. That is amazing. Congratulations, Cami. Thank you for your support. I'll reach out to you via your email that is provided in Patreon. So take a look there. I'll get your address, make sure it's correct, and I'll be mailing this baby out to you. So congratulations, Cami. We have one more today, guys. We have the winner of the 300 mark. And, drum roll, congratulations to Christopher Smithson. Christopher, if you are in here, let me know if either of you guys are in here. Christopher Smithson and Cami Glasgow. Congratulations. I, again, will be looking at I'll be using your Patreon emails to contact you that way. So, congratulations, guys, and thank you so much to you two, but also to all my Patreons. Patreon members, my patrons. I couldn't do what I'm doing without you, and I mean that sincerely. You are the reason I'm able to have quit my job as a photographer to pursue trying to teach people and get people as excited about space as I am. This is more than a full-time job. And my Patreons, the Discord channel knows I spend 60, 70 hours a week working on these videos. I spent a lot of time and money going down to Florida, renting extra gear so I could provide as many opportunities for you guys. I'm trying to do my best to get you guys the access that I have and to get you guys as much information as I can, because first and foremost, I want to know. And second of all, I want you to know. So, and I really couldn't do it without the Patreons. So, thank you so much, patrons. You guys are amazing. Tron, check Discord. That's awesome. Oh, no way. Bray Art in our Discord channel. You're here. You're watching. So that must be, is that Cammy? Is Bray Art Cammy, or is that Christopher? Congratulations though to both of you guys. That's so funny. Awesome. I'm really glad you're watching live. That's really cool. Yay! Yay! So I'll try to think of after 400, because we have one more 400, and I'll try to think of something really cool for 500. Send me a tweet of what you think it should be. Maybe I'll have to get another piece of something, another piece of flown material or something. Yeah. There we go. Oh, Christopher. There we go. Christopher Smithson, you're watching right now. That's so cool. Well, congrats, Christopher, and thank you for your support. So, EA, Everyday Astronaut or Electronic Arts. So, what do I think of the Angara family of rockets? They're cool. I am blanking right now, though, on Angara versus... I'm mixing that up in my head with Antares. But yeah, Angara rockets... It gets a good question. I have to let you know why exactly I do or don't like Angara in the future. I'm blanking right now, though. Oh, tomorrow. Is tomorrow in here? If not... Oh, tomorrow's in here. Hey, everybody, we need to say hi to our friends at Tomorrow. TMRO. If you are not subscribed and watching Tomorrow every Saturday, you're doing the internet wrong. You are actually doing you are wrong. You are wrong. You deserve a pinch in the tuchus, because you are straight up wrong. You need to be watching Tomorrow. That's the Higginbothams, Benjamin and Carrie Ann, who both work for a certain company with an X in the name that they can't really talk about. So they bring on Space Mike, who often talks. He's their rocket expert. I sometimes come and talk about SpaceX occasionally when they need an opinion on SpaceX, but they do such a good job of talking about everything in space. They do a weekly space news, and it's the best. It really, and I sincerely mean that. It is the best place to go for weekly space news about things. And they have Jared Head, who is their astronomer, who takes care of all things kind of more space and astronomy related. He's really good. He's really smart. And Space Mike is just awesome about rockets. He knows rockets better than anybody I know. They do an awesome job. So please, for the love of God, subscribe to Tomorrow, TMRO. If you like what I do, you'll love what they do. They've been doing it forever. Yeah. So big shout out to Tomorrow. Let's make sure. I don't know if Nightbot works for Tomorrow. I probably misspelled it even. No. The next KSP stream. I hopefully will be doing a Kerbal stream at some point after I get done with this Falcon Heavy recap video. So it might be a week or two, but I really want to nail this Falcon Heavy recap. I want it to be the most in-depth resource for after Falcon Heavy, and that's important to me. So, Paul Jr. asks if I will be doing a This Week in Spaceflight History with Uncle Dad tomorrow. No, unfortunately. And we won't be doing anything this week, but good news, everybody. put this in your brains and in your calendars and in your face and in your mouth and also maybe your nose and your ears. I decided, Uncle Dad and I, he's no longer going to be called Uncle Dad because I realized that even though that's been his nickname in our friend group for like 7 years, he's been called Uncle Dad for whatever reason. It makes no sense. I realized there's a cartoon called Uncle Grandpa, and people get that confused, and it's just a dumb name. It's a dumb name. He's going to be now called Jacob EQ, which is Jacob, that's his real name, and the Everyday Questionnaire / the Equalizer. So he's the one that just asks the silly questions. If you don't know what I'm talking about, we do this show. We started season 2 and then abruptly stopped it of This Week in Spaceflight History, which is where I play Kerbal Space Program with my friend Jacob, who knows nothing about space. He is probably the most space illiterate human I know, and I love it because he asks all the good questions. And so I just play and teach him stuff, and we recreate a spaceflight event. So we plan to do that every Wednesday night. We can't do it this Wednesday. We can't even do it Thursday. The reason being a few things, but one of them, guys, is I will be working actually on producing a podcast. I've had a lot of people asking about a podcast. It will also be with Jacob EQ. It'll be a similar format. I will record it and put them up here on YouTube, but I'll also put them up on your favorite podcasts, iTunes and things like that, wherever you get your podcasts. And we'll do either a weekly or a bi-weekly news section where I'm just going to sit here. I'm going to read news to Jacob EQ, and he's going to ask questions. And then I think it'll be really genuinely entertaining because he is hilarious and he will lend a very good ear to all that type of stuff. So there we go. So it will no longer be Uncle Dad. We will call him Jacob EQ from now on. We'll still try to do, I think what we'll do maybe is every other week we'll do This Week in Spaceflight History, which is YouTube only. And then the next week we'll do the podcast, but we'll record the podcasts live for Patreon members. But we will not be doing the podcast, but we'll be posting the podcast on YouTube. But it won't be live just on YouTube. It'll be a Patreon exclusive to be able to watch the recording of the podcast live. So if that interests you, and we probably won't be addressing the chat room too much during the podcast because we want to just kind of keep it concise and to the news and to the point. But yeah, that's awesome. So there we go. He'll always be Uncle Dad in your hearts. I will. Paul, good question. I will be using this microphone, which is not currently active for the podcast. I think I'll be using this one. Jacob will be using, he has a much nicer radio voice than I do. He'll be using another tube mic that I have lying around. I use this shotgun mic for this stuff just because it picks up a little bit more ambience. Like if I move around, a tube mic, you kind of have to be locked on. So yeah. There we go. We will still be doing This Week in Spaceflight History eventually. And, if you want to become a Discord member, patreon.com/everydayastronaut. You can become a Discord member there at a certain tier. So, yeah. I think that's what we're doing. So, I think that's going to be it for me, guys. My voice hurts. I'm done streaming. I can't do this all day, unfortunately. I hope I answered your questions about Falcon Heavy. If I didn't, rewatch this replay when it goes up live. We started off with a lot of questions at the beginning. And also remember, I will be doing a proper, very in-depth rundown video that I'm working on scripting right now. I'm starting to pass it around with the Discord members. They'll be seeing the script popping up soon. So there we go. This video will be live. Well, not live. It'll go up on YouTube. It's saved. I'll keep it up. I'll make it public. You guys can rewatch it. Hopefully, again, we can answer all your questions. So that's going to do it for me, guys. I hope you guys had an awesome day. Remember, if you want a chance to win the last piece of Space Shuttle Discovery that I have, patreon.com/everydayastronaut. And again, thank you to my Patreons. Thank you for all those that purchased prints just now. If you want your own prints, you can go to everydayastronaut.com/shop for your own prints. They will drop and ship to your door. So I owe a big thanks to you guys. All the support really means a lot from everybody. I couldn't do this without you guys. So thank you. Stay tuned. There'll be a lot more content coming, I promise. I'm not slowing down. As a matter of fact, I'm speeding up. There's just a lot to do. So get ready for lots more, everybody. And thank you, everybody. I hope you guys have a great one. That's going to do it for me. I'm Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut, bringing space down to Earth for everyday people. Bye, guys. I think we all dreamt about going to space when we were kids. But when the space shuttle program ended in 2011, I discovered a void in my life. That emptiness led to a newfound obsession with space. A few years later, I wound up bidding on a Russian spacesuit as a joke. When the box arrived at my doorstep, my friends asked, "What are you gonna do with a spacesuit?" The answer? What can't I do with a spacesuit? That's how Everyday Astronaut was born. Since then, the suit hasn't left my side. It's even gone around the world with me. From remote villages in Myanmar,
Rockets and spaceships.
to beautiful fields in Norway.
I'm fighting a cow to get a picture right now.
Here I am on vacation in the beautiful Norway with my beautiful boyfriend.
I even proposed to my wife in the suit at Machu Picchu in Peru. These days I work with leaders in the space industry to create fun and inspirational content. I've even been invited to different NASA facilities across the country, all for the sake of sharing my excitement with the world.
Hey there, it's me, Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut. Now, I'm not sure if you're aware, but NASA is doing some incredible... This is church for us space nerds.
This is where Gene Kranz was sitting when people first met him.
This is with permission.
I still don't know how.
I love that I'm standing on something that says urine bags. This thing's gonna fly like a cat and eat. Whatever that means. That dog's gonna have a sore throat by the end of the day, I'll tell you that. Especially once he tries to explain to his friends that he just saw an astronaut flying majestically through the sky for an hour.
This thing has officially become the bane of my existence.
Everyday Astronaut's mission is to bring space down to Earth for everyday people, to communicate science through humor and imagination, but most importantly, to spark your curiosity, to want to find your place in the cosmos. Join my adventures as I seek to find out why exploring space is important, inspiring, and quite frankly, really, really neat. Show your support by visiting patreon.com/everydayastronaut.